I was Luo Wenzhou's cherished first love, the girlfriend he pursued with relentless effort, yet, on his wedding night to his childhood sweetheart Lin Qian, he drowned his sorrows for her. He told me he regretted it all, then lost control, leapt from a moving car, and died. His parents had me sent to prison. I died after suffering endlessly. They still wouldn't stop. My parents died in a car accident. My brother had his legs broken by thugs. My sister-in-law perished in the flames, a life lost for two. The night I returned to when Luo Wenzhou leapt from the car, I wept with overwhelming joy. 1. I'm so sorry, brother. Drifting in the air, I watched my brother grovel on the ground begging, my heart breaking beyond measure. A shrill phone ring pierced the air. Everything went black before my eyes. When I opened my eyes again, I saw the familiar ceiling. Reborn. The phone by the bed kept ringing, and the name flashing on the screen was Chen Chen, Luo Wenzhou's childhood friend. I picked up the phone, remembering that this very call led to my family's ruin. Gripping the phone tightly, I slammed it forcefully to the ground. I suddenly burst out laughing uncontrollably, tears streaming down my cheeks. Today is the wedding day of Luo Wenzhou's childhood friend, Lin Qian. Just this morning, he told me that my wedding would definitely be more grand than hers, yet there he was, drinking himself into a stupor in the dead of night. His childhood friend, Chen Chen, called and asked me to go pick him up. In my past life, I didn't even change out of my pajamas before rushing out in a panic to drive and get him in the car, reeking of alcohol. He sobbed, Qian, I regret it. I comforted him, my heart aching all the while, yet, time and again, he trampled my heart to pieces. Qian, it's always been you. You're the one I love. Qian, please don't marry him, please. Finally, worn out and at my wit's end, I snapped at him, then get out of the car and go win her back. To my shock, he actually flung the car door open and jumped out. He was struck and killed by an oncoming truck. The Luo family, with all their power and influence, had both me and the truck driver thrown in prison. I was specially cared for inside, and eventually died after enduring endless humiliation, yet his parents still wouldn't let it go. 2. Luo Wenzhou jumped into the river but was saved. Why didn't he die? Early in the morning, I was jolted awake by Chen Chen's frantic pounding on the door. Still in my pajamas, he dragged me to the hospital, saying Luo Wenzhou was inconsolable and only I could comfort him. As I approached the hospital room, I heard Luo's mother's voice inside. Now you regret it and are acting like you're dying. Qian liked you so much, and we pressured you into an engagement. It was you who said, I have someone I like. I only see Qian as a sister. I just don't get it. What does Qian lack compared to Su Nanxiao? Family background, looks, education. Mom, please stop talking. I'm going to say it anyway. I turned to leave, but Chen behind me suddenly shoved me into the hospital room. Stumbling, I crashed into the view of everyone in the room. Mrs. Luo looked me up and down, and seeing I was still in my pajamas, she immediately said in a snide tone, well, look who finally decided to show up. My son put you on a pedestal, and this is how you repay him. Couldn't even be reached by phone last night. You drove my son to jump into the river. Because of you, he almost died. I haven't even settled the score with you yet. I gazed at the well-maintained yet spiteful and disdainful face of Luo's mother. The scenes of past life's deep-seated hatred suddenly surged into my mind. How she orchestrated the accidental car crash that took my parents' lives with her power, how she bribed thugs to break my brother's legs, and how she caused a fire that took the life of my pregnant sister-in-law and her unborn child. My nails dug deep into my palm, the sharp pain reminding me to stay calm. I stared directly into her eyes and sneered, Auntie, you really overestimate me. I turned my head, my cold gaze falling on Luo Wenzhou's pale face on the hospital bed, my eyes now devoid of any affection. Luo Wenzhou, you jumped into the river drunk for Lin Qian, so why drag me into this charade of deep love? If you really can't let go of Lin Qian, fine. I said coldly and decisively, let's break up. You're free now. You can go and win Lin Qian back. With that, I turned and left without a second thought. Behind me, Luo Wenzhou's urgent calls and his mother's furious screams echoed. I know I don't have the power to seek revenge yet, and the consequences are something I can't bear, but that's okay. I don't believe the Luo family is without flaws. 3. The moment I left the hospital, I blocked and deleted Luo Wenzhou from every contact I had. I booked the next available flight back to Jiangqing. As the plane touched down and I stepped onto my hometown soil, my heart was filled with a bitter ache. In my past life, after I died, my parents wanted to lay me to rest, But the Luo family had my remains utterly destroyed. I pushed the door open and found only my sister-in-law at home. She was wearing an apron, a spatula still in her hand. Seeing me, she froze for a second before a gentle smile spread across her face. Chow chow, what a surprise. Come in, come in. Seeing my vibrant, kind sister-in-law standing before me and remembering the horrific fate she suffered in my past life, I was instantly overwhelmed by a wave of immense dread and profound, grateful relief at having her back. I couldn't utter a single word. I just threw myself into her arms as tears began to stream down my face uncontrollably. I'm terrified that this rebirth is just a dream, and when I open my eyes, I'll still be a lost soul drifting aimlessly. I cried until I was completely spent, and finally, soothed by my sister-in-law's gentle whispers, I fell into an exhausted sleep. When I woke again, it was already evening, and my parents and brother had returned home. My mother sat by the bed, wiping my face with a heartbroken tenderness. Oh, my silly child, what's happened to you? You're home now. That's all that matters. Your father and I can still take care of you. Dad didn't press for details. He just quietly peeled an apple and handed it to me. Have an apple first. My brother leaned against the doorframe, his eyes full of concern. Did that kid Luo Wenzhou bully you? Looking at them, my heart was filled with a bittersweet warmth. They're alive, that's wonderful. I sat up, hugged my mom, then hugged my dad, and said with a smile, no, I just missed you both. And I took the apple from my dad's hand. It had been so long since I'd had an apple he peeled for me. Luo Wenzhou and I have broken up. The room fell silent for a moment. Mom looked surprised at first, then let out a sigh of relief, gently pulling me into her arms. Maybe it's for the best. His family, they're in a different league. If you were ever wronged there, your father and I would have a hard time standing up for you. For the next day, my brother drove me to the airport. At the airport, he took my luggage, ruffled my hair, and spoke with a seriousness I'd never heard before. Chow chow, remember, no matter what happens, home will always be your safe haven. If you're ever wronged, don't just tough it out. Your brother might not be as rich as the Luo family, but I can support you for a lifetime, no problem. Looking at my brother's gentle, youthful face and then thinking of his crippled leg in my past life, how he had to beg in the mud, my eyes instantly welled up with tears. My brother was the pride of heaven. At just 20, he founded his own gaming company with passion and talent, promising a bright future. However, the Luo family bribed his close friend with a hefty sum. That person, armed with so-called evidence, twisted the truth online, accusing his brother of plagiarizing all his ideas. His brother was cyberbullied, the company went bankrupt, and his reputation was ruined. Even so, he didn't give up. Dragging his exhausted body, he searched for jobs everywhere, hoping to start over, but the Luo family wouldn't even grant him that sliver of hope. They hired thugs to break his legs in the most brutal way, casting him into the abyss for good. I spun around abruptly, turning my back to my brother, and waved my hand forcefully, terrified he might see the hatred burning in my eyes. Damn you, Luo family. 5. Standing downstairs at my rented apartment, I saw the last person I ever wanted to see. Luo Wenzhou. What bad luck. I couldn't be bothered to even lift my eyelids. I walked right past him. He grabbed my hand. Chow chow, what you said at the hospital that day was just a fit of anger, wasn't it? Why did you block all my contact methods? Looking into his sorrowful eyes, I could only find it laughable. Still playing the devoted lover now, I forcefully shook off his hand and said coldly, every word I said that day was true. I don't believe you. He latched onto me again, grabbing my hand. We loved each other so much. For you, I defied my family time and again, gave up my childhood friend Lin Qian, and finally got my parents to agree. You said meeting me was the greatest fortune of your life. How could you be so heartless, Luo Wenzhou? I stared at him, jabbing my finger hard into his chest. Search your heart and ask yourself, do you really love me? If you loved me, why did you get drunk and jump into the river when Lin Qian got married? Didn't I make it clear enough at the hospital? What are you doing here now? I stepped closer to him, my eyes filled with contempt. When Lin Qian liked him, he turned a blind eye. Now that Lin Qian is married, he regrets it. Isn't he ridiculous? What, am I a garbage dump? He panicked immediately, stuttering his explanation. No, Jojo, listen to me. It's just, I can't accept that she suddenly got married. After all, we've been childhood sweethearts for over a decade, inseparable. Do you even believe that yourself? I cut him off mid-spiel, swiped my card to enter, and never looked back. Xiao Qiao. 6. The last time we parted, I next saw Luo Wenzhou at a university reunion. I was the last to arrive. The private room was incredibly noisy, and the only empty seat was conspicuously to Luo Wenzhou's left. It seemed that everyone was still unaware of our breakup. As they enthusiastically called me over to sit down, I smiled, avoiding that direction, and directly called the waiter, "Could you please bring another chair?" Then, I naturally sat down next to Lin Qian. The atmosphere instantly froze. Everyone's eyes darted between me and Luo Wenzhou, whose expression had suddenly darkened. Finally realizing something, Lin Qian leaned closer to me and whispered, "You guys broke up?" I nodded slightly. Her face was a picture of utter disbelief, with a flicker of joy that flashed in the depths of her eyes. I was once Luo Wenzhou's unattainable white moonlight, the girlfriend he pursued with relentless determination and every trick in the book. Our beginning was like something out of a romantic K-drama. Our first meeting was at my flower shop. My brother opened it for me when I was in college. That day, he came in to buy a birthday bouquet for Lin Qian. After that, he became a regular. I sensed he might like me, but I was clear-headed enough to know that a rich young man's interest is often just a passing fancy. But then he went and made this huge, school-wide spectacle of a confession. I refused. What followed was months of relentless pursuit: flowers, watches, designer bags, necklaces. I sent every single gift back, unopened. What truly won me over was catching him, by chance, gently and patiently feeding a stray cat. There wasn't a hint of pretense in his eyes. It was him stepping in without a second thought to help a girl being harassed. It was natural for him to bend down and help the elderly scavenger pick up the scattered bottles and cans. On the 99th time he confessed, I agreed. After we got together, he truly treated me with respect, placing me on an equal footing, without the usual arrogance and frivolity of a rich second generation. I once thought I was lucky. If only Lin Qian hadn't gotten married so suddenly. If only he hadn't gotten drunk and jumped from the car. If only there wasn't the blood debt from the past life, the debt of a ruined family. But alas, there are no if-onlys. His impulsive act of seeking death led to my family's ruin. Therefore, in this life, there is only one relationship between us: enemies to the death. 7. As I exited the restroom, Luo Wenzhou was indeed blocking the hallway. He held a cigarette between his fingers, but as soon as he saw me, he immediately snuffed it out. I lowered my eyes, realizing he had never forgotten. Once, I couldn't stand even a whiff of smoke, so he quit smoking for me. Even during gatherings with his friends, he would repeatedly warn them in advance that no one was allowed to smoke in front of me. Those past kindnesses now seem utterly absurd when I think about them. "Xiao Qiao," he said, looking exhausted and his voice hoarse, "I've thought about it a lot since I left. I love you. Lin Qian liked me for so long, and when she suddenly got married, he seemed unable to continue, hanging his head. It was my male pride acting up. That's why I got drunk. After drinking, I don't know why I was so impulsive, and jumped into the river." He looked up at me. "That wasn't my intention, Xiao Qiao." I calmly listened to him finish, then raised my hand, revealing the ring on my right ring finger. "Luo Wenzhou, I'm married. Stop bothering me." His pupils contracted sharply. He grabbed my hand, frantically trying to wrench the ring off my finger. "You're lying, aren't you? There's no way you married someone else. I don't believe it." The bodyguard stationed nearby immediately stepped forward and efficiently restrained him. I straightened my sleeves and caught sight of Lin Qian peeking from around the corner. "I've already settled the bill for the dinner," I said to her. "Could you please keep an eye on everyone for me? I'm heading out." I ignored the nearly hysterical shout from Luo Wenzhou behind me. "Xiao Qiao, come back. Tell me this isn't true." I walked away without looking back. 9. Sitting in the speeding car, I stared down at the ring on my finger, lost in thought. A week ago, after confronting Luo Wenzhou decisively downstairs in the rental apartment, a profound sense of anxiety began gnawing at me day and night. I am well aware that unless I quickly bring down the Luo family, the hatred in my heart will never subside. The horrific scenes of my parents' tragic deaths in a previous life, my sister-in-law's desperate demise in a fire, my brother crawling on the streets begging, these images haunt my dreams every night, leaving me no peace. So I frantically searched my past life memories, looking for forces that could counter the Luo family. A name suddenly popped into my mind: the Zhu family, a true century-old prestigious clan, with immeasurable depth. I recall that Zhu Yunxian, the youngest and most beloved son of the Zhu family patriarch, was involved in a severe car accident recently and fell into a vegetative state. The old patriarch, being deeply superstitious, turned to the abbot of Linging Temple after exhausting all options with renowned physicians to no avail. This incident even trended on social media at the time. The abbot performed a divination, stating that Zhu Yunquan's destined benefactor was born in Yunluo village Renwui Si Gue Hai Jiayin. The Zhu family indeed followed the clues to find my rural hometown and then tracked down my parents. They didn't explicitly mention Chongxi, but their intentions were crystal clear: to find a girl with a compatible Bazi to accompany a comatose patient who might never wake up. My parents are simple, honest folks, but they're not fools. They understood the Zhu family's true intentions the moment they heard the proposal. There was no way they would agree to them. It was like pushing me into a bottomless pit of fire, condemning me to be a living widow for a wealthy family for the rest of my life. They loved their daughter dearly and knew they were no match for a behemoth like the Zhu family. They feared that even a moment's hesitation would seal my fate as a lucky bride for a sick husband, so they took the most decisive approach. They directly threw the visitor out the door, completely cutting off the Zhu family's intentions. I only learned about this incident after my death, when my wandering soul happened to arrive at the Zhu family residence and overheard it from the servants at Zhu Yunquan's funeral. In this life, the Zhu family is my only, and best, opportunity to destroy the Luo family. I must seize it. I packed my bags as quickly as possible and headed back to Jiangqing. Judging by the time, the Zhu family will come knocking in the next few days. 9. I pushed open the door, and all eyes in the room immediately focused on me. The atmosphere was so heavy it was suffocating, suppressing my racing heart. I feigned confusion. Dad, Mom, do we have guests? On the sofa sat an elegant, graceful woman in a cheongsam. Behind her stood several stern-faced bodyguards and a refined elderly butler. Mom's face turned pale. She immediately stood up and tried to pull me toward the room. Xiao, go to your room for now. Wait, came the gentle yet firm voice of the elegant woman. I believe the person in question has a right to know about this matter. My father's face darkened as he stated with absolute certainty, she's still young. We have every right to decide her marriage for her. The woman gave a soft laugh and looked at me kindly. Mr. Su, young women these days have far more say in their own lives than we did in our time, especially when it comes to something as important as a lifelong commitment like marriage. Hearing this, I immediately pulled my hand free from my mother's grasp and hurried over to sit down beside my father. Since we're talking about my marriage, I need to know. The smile in the elegant woman's eyes became a bit more genuine. All right, I'll be straightforward. You can call me Aunt Zhu. My younger brother, Yun Xian, was in a car accident recently and has been in a coma ever since. My father loves him dearly and wants to find him a wife to take care of him. After all, no matter how professional a nanny or nurse is, they can't match the care of a wife. I pretended to be puzzled and asked directly, why me? I won't hide it from you, Auntie Zhu said with disarming frankness. My father puts great stock in these things. The abbot of Linging Temple read the fortune and said that Yunquan's destined benefactor matches your exact birth details and place of origin. We've searched everywhere before finally finding you here. After a moment of contemplation, I asked the most crucial question. If he wakes up, but doesn't like me, can I get a divorce? Of course you can, Auntie Zhu replied without hesitation. Our Zhu family are reasonable people. We would never force anyone into anything. When the time comes, you'll receive ample compensation and we'll send you off with all due respect. All right, I nodded. I'm willing to marry him. Xiao, what are you talking nonsense about? My parents instantly panicked, and my mom tried to cover my mouth. Children talking nonsense doesn't count. Aunt Zhu ignored my parents' words, looked at me with a serious gaze, and reaffirmed, Su Nanqiao, think carefully. If my brother never wakes up, you might have to take care of him for the rest of your life. If he, unfortunately, passes away early, according to the old customs, as his widow, you cannot remarry. This is not a joke. I gently pushed my mom's hand away, turned to look at my parents, and gave them an incredibly determined look. Dad, Mom, I know what I'm doing. I'm not a child anymore. 10. They will never know that. The daughter sitting in front of them right now has a soul that crawled back from hell. In my past life, my parents spent all their wealth to hire the best lawyers they could find, yet in the face of power, all defenses were futile. I was still convicted of negligent homicide and sentenced to life imprisonment along with other charges. I will never forget the day of the verdict. When my parents' hair turned white overnight and their backs bent, they refused to give up, running everywhere to appeal on my behalf, fighting only to get justice for me. But the Luo family had no intention of letting my parents off the hook. In the end, they died in that so-called accidental car crash. I knew it was no accident. it was the Luo family's revenge against me in this life. My parents are still alive and well. I will never allow the tragedy of my past life to repeat itself. Even if I must plunge into the abyss and sacrifice my life, I will drag the entire Luo family down with me. Otherwise, the tragedy that befell my family will only repeat in an endless cycle. Because I know Luo Wenzhou, he will definitely come back to bother me again. 11. My parents, seeing the resolute light in my eyes, suddenly collapsed. Aunt Zhu finally asked, "What are your conditions?" I stepped forward, leaned in close to her ear, and said in a voice only the two of us could hear, "My condition is that the Luo family must disappear from Sioux City completely." Aunt Zhu's pupils contracted slightly as she gave me a meaningful look. "Got a grudge?" "Yes." My voice was icy. She stood up almost without hesitation. "All right, any other requests?" "None." She gave a slight nod, then left decisively with her entourage, leaving us and the silence behind. 12. Madam, we've arrived. The bodyguard opened the car door for me, his deep voice pulling me back from my thoughts. I composed myself, stepped out of the car, and walked directly toward the quiet standalone villa on the east side of the estate. The first time I saw Zhu Yunxian, even in his deep slumber, I was utterly stunned by his breathtaking beauty. A gentleman of peerless grace, a jade among men. Our marriage was never publicly announced, but the marriage certificate we obtained was very real. The betrothal gifts from the Zhu family were listed on a dowry scroll over a foot long, and their value was truly staggering. My parents, holding the gilded gift list, were trembling so much they almost dared not accept it. It's been a week since I married into the Zhu family, yet this all still feels surreal and dreamlike to me. The Luo family, which once drove my family to ruin and left us gasping for breath, now seems as insignificant as an ant that can be crushed at will in the face of the mighty Zhu family. Zhu Yizhi, the eldest brother of the Zhu family, a man of strong presence and decisive actions, once asked me directly, "The Luo family, how do you want them to die, a quick slash, or a slow, torturous grind?" I froze for a moment, then snapped back to reality. A chill of hatred seeped into my very bones. "A slow, blunt blade. I will make them lose what they cherish most, piece by piece, let them rot slowly in fear and despair, experiencing a mere fraction of the agony from my past life." Upon hearing this, Zhu Yizhi gave a slight, indifferent nod, saying nothing more as if it were a trivial matter. He simply instructed me, "Take good care of Yunxian, don't trouble yourself with the Luo family's affairs anymore. I will give you a satisfactory resolution." 13. I give Zhu Yunxian a daily full-body massage. But before I finish, I'm already sweating from the effort. After washing up, I sit in the recliner by his bed as usual, reading him a book. His bedroom connects to a massive study, and every day I enter, I'm still amazed by the walls lined with trophies and certificates that silently tell the story of his remarkable past. Zhu Yunxian, who graduated from university at 16 and was admitted to the National Research Institute as a sophomore thanks to his extraordinary intelligence, is truly a prodigy. Feeling weary from reading, I set the book down. Gazing at his serene, flawless profile, I was inexplicably drawn to lean down and press a light kiss upon his cool lips. After the deed was done, I froze for a moment, then couldn't help but chuckle at myself. This man, as brilliant and peerless as the bright moon, was now my husband. If not now to steal a kiss, then when? I fear that once he awakens, my chance will be gone forever. I made inquiries beforehand. He has no close female companion by his side. I also observed carefully and found no trace of a woman's presence in his study. Otherwise, I would never have resorted to this act of stealing a moment of intimacy. My gaze inadvertently swept over the delicate collarbone peeking from beneath his pajamas. A sudden warmth flooded my cheeks as I was reminded of the awkwardness from the first time I had to bathe him, and then, the unexpectedly imposing sight I had glimpsed, so starkly at odds with his refined and handsome face. There was even that one time later, when an unconscious, natural reaction of his body required my assistance to relieve, my face burning, my hands trembling, I helped him through it. I have kept this matter an absolute secret, never mentioning it to a soul. I have cared for him with all my heart, yet I do not know if he will ever awaken in this lifetime, but from the bottom of my heart, I hope he will recover. A person of such brilliance should not fade away so dimly. He should have continued to shine, to live out the grand, unfinished life that was meant for him. 14. Every morning, I would place a fresh bouquet of flowers in Zhu Yunxuan's bedroom, then sit by his bedside and chatter away about the little things. That day, Zhu Yunxuan's eldest brother, Zhu Yizhi, came to visit. Standing by the bed, he told me in a flat tone, "The Zhu family has put the word out that the Luo family has offended us." He paused, As if mentioning a trivial matter, now, the Luo family's business partners are cutting ties one after another, banks are calling in their loans, and their stock is plummeting. It's not far from hitting the limit down. Old Mr. Luo is beside himself with worry. They say his hair has turned half white from the stress. After discussing the Luo family's current situation, he glanced at Zhu Yunxian, still asleep, and prepared to leave. Big brother, I called out to him instinctively. Zhu Yiji stopped, turned around, and gave me an inquiring look. My heart was racing, my palms slightly sweaty, but after much hesitation, I finally spoke up. Big brother, are you planning to bid against the Wang family for that plot of land in the west of the city? Zhu Yiji's eyes suddenly sharpened, but he didn't answer. He just silently looked at me, waiting for me to continue. I took a deep breath and spoke with utmost seriousness. Please, under no circumstances should you bid on that land. No matter how promising it seems, no matter how tempting the insider information is, do not touch it. In a past life, both the Zhu and Wang families received insider information that the country would build a high-speed railway station in the west of the city. The two families fought bitterly over it, and the Zhu family eventually won the bid at a tremendous cost. In the end, the government's final plan was set for the southern part of the city. Consequently, the Zhu family's capital chain snapped, suffering devastating losses, while the Wang family seized the opportunity to rise and overtake them in one fell swoop. I absolutely cannot allow the Zhu family to repeat the same mistake and be relegated to second place in Sioux City. My grand plan for revenge must not encounter any mishaps. Zhu Yiji's profound gaze lingered on my face for a long moment, as if trying to discern the truth and intent behind my words. In the end, he said nothing, merely giving a slight nod before turning to leave. My heart was in turmoil, unsure whether he had actually believed me or simply dismissed it as nonsense. If he didn't believe me, I need to come up with another plan, and fast. 15. Just as I was racking my brains, trying to figure out how to persuade Zhu Yiji, the butler approached me respectfully and said, "Young mistress, the Wang family has won the bid for the plot of land in the west of the city." He then added, "The young master asked me to relay this to you. I hope your judgment will not disappoint the Zhu family." The moment the butler left, I was so happy I nearly jumped for joy. An overwhelming wave of joy and relief washed over me. I hurried to Zhu Yunxuan's bedside and gave him a firm kiss. "Did you hear that? That's fantastic. We've avoided that piece of land." I completely failed to notice that Zhu Yunxuan's finger had twitched. That day, my university class group chat exploded with notifications, countless messages all tagging me. I opened it up, and the core message was just one thing: Luo Wenzhou and Lin Qian are together now. I let out a soft, quiet laugh, indeed, recalling the last class reunion. Lin Qian's barely concealed delight when she heard Luo Wenzhou and I had broken up. I scrolled up through the records to piece together the full picture. It turns out that the night Lin Qian found out about our breakup, she insisted on divorcing her arranged marriage husband. How could the Lin family allow her to ruin such an important business marriage? As a result, Lin Qian took an unconventional approach and drugged Luo Wenzhou. The two were coincidentally discovered and caught in the act. Lin Qian used this to successfully get a divorce, but Luo Wenzhou found it disgusting and harshly berated Lin Qian as despicable and shameless, declaring that she deserved her fate and that he would never marry her. However, a more dramatic twist unfolded. Lin Qian is pregnant. How could the Luo family, currently in dire straits and in desperate need of funding, let go of the lifeline that is the Lin family? Thus, Luo Wenzhou was forced to marry Lin Qian. 16. I received the gilded wedding invitation for Luo Wenzhou and Lin Qian. I decided to give them a wedding gift they would never forget. On the wedding day, I deliberately wore a bright red qipao, its intense color marking the beginning of my revenge. As expected, as soon as I appeared, Luo Wenzhou's gaze kept falling on me, and even the priest stumbled over his words during the vows, creating an awkward moment. Lin Qian, dressed in a pure white wedding gown, looked at me with venom in her eyes, as if she wanted to tear me apart. I gave her a smile. Didn't she make my life difficult in every way when Luo Wenzhou pursued me back then? Luo Wenzhou's friends still hold prejudices against me, and her spreading rumors everywhere certainly played a part in that. What's even more malicious is that during university, she spread rumors that I was being kept by a wealthy businessman. If it weren't for my strong-willed nature and threatening to commit suicide to force the school to investigate and clear my name, I would have been drowned in gossip and likely dropped out due to depression. The wedding ceremony proceeded as planned, reaching the part where a video of the couples meeting and falling in love was to be played. The massive screen lit up, but instead of sweet moments, what appeared was a hidden camera video of Luo's father entering a private residence with different young women, even appearing as a happy family next. The screen switched to intimate scenes of Luo's mother keeping a young male college student at an upscale club. A deathly silence fell over the audience, followed by a wave of irrepressible gasps and frantic whispers. Luo Wenjo's face turned ashen. He clenched his fists so tightly his knuckles turned white the moment the footage appeared. Luo's parents' expressions changed drastically. In a panic, they screamed at the staff, turn it off now." Sitting upright among the guests, I gently swirled my champagne glass, gazing coldly at the family's utter humiliation on stage. In my heart, I said, "Luo Wenjo, how does your family like this wedding gift? Don't rush this, just a small interest repaid at the beginning." 17 When I returned to the Zhu family estate, I found everyone gathered outside Zhu Yunxuan's room, the atmosphere heavy and strangely tense. My heart skipped a beat, and I quickly pushed through the crowd and rushed in. As a result, I saw Zhu Yunxian leaning against the headboard, his face pale, but his eyes clear and bright, filled with a touch of confusion as he looked around. Just waking up, the Zhu family gathered around the bed, each of them weeping with joy. Grandpa Zhu tightly held his hand, tears streaming down his face, repeatedly murmuring, "It's good that you're awake, it's good that you're awake." Seeing this heartwarming scene, I instinctively slowed my steps, planning to quietly leave and give them space as a family. Just as I was about to step out of the door, a hoarse but clear voice rang out, "Honey, where are you going?" I froze in place. All eyes in the room suddenly focused on me, filled with various expressions of surprise and intrigue. I awkwardly turned around, feeling at a loss. Seeing this, old Master Zhu immediately wiped his tears, suppressing a smile as he spoke. All right, everyone out. Let Yunxian and Nanqiao have a moment to talk." With good-natured laughter and whispers, the crowd filed out one by one, thoughtfully closing the door behind them. The room was suddenly left with just the two of us. I hung my head, staring at the pattern on the carpet, wishing I could bore a hole right through it with my gaze. Zhu Yunxian looked at me, hiding like an ostrich, and suddenly let out a soft chuckle, his voice hoarse from not speaking for a long time. "Why are you scared now that I'm awake? When I was a vegetable, you stole kisses, talked to me endlessly, and even, weren't you quite bold?" I was shocked and jerked my head up. You were conscious the whole time." He gave me a small eye roll, his tone teasing. I just couldn't move, not that I was dead. "Then I'll help you." My cheeks instantly flushed, my toes curled in my shoes with embarrassment, and I couldn't even form a complete sentence. "Help you with what?" He pressed on deliberately, a mischievous glint in his eyes. "You know, that thing." I was so embarrassed I wanted to crawl into a hole. "Which one?" He seemed determined to tease me, insisting I say it myself. Frustrated, I closed my eyes and blurted out, "It's helping you relieve yourself with my hands. Don't you feel it too?" After shouting, my whole face turned red, and I didn't dare to look at him. The room fell silent for a few seconds. Then, I heard his infuriatingly teasing voice, "Su Nanqiao, do you want to take a look behind you first, huh?" I opened my eyes in confusion and turned my head. The door had been pushed open a good crack without my noticing, led by the eldest Zhu brother. Several family members stood frozen in the doorway, their stunned expressions making it clear they had heard every word of my earth-shattering outburst. If only there were a mouse hole I could crawl into. 18 With Zhu Yunxian now awake, I could proceed without restraint to execute my final act of vengeance against the Luo family. Step 1. Crush their spirit. I barged into the Luo family home with my bodyguards in tow. The bodyguards unceremoniously forced old man Luo and his wife to the ground, making them kneel before me. "Su Nanqiao, what do you think you're doing? This is breaking and entering." "You just wait." Madame Luo's shrill tirade was abruptly cut short. With just a glance, my bodyguard behind me delivered a heavy backhanded slap to her face, causing her head to snap to the side and silencing her instantly. I leaned slightly forward, my gaze fixed on Luo's father, whose face was ashen. My tone was playful as I said, "Mr. Luo, if you want to blame someone, blame yourself for marrying such a wonderful wife. I don't have many virtues, but I am particularly vengeful. Your wife once humiliated me with money, and I haven't forgotten it for a moment. Now that I've risen to power, I must settle the score." As soon as I finished speaking, my bodyguard immediately slammed a thick stack of documents in front of Mr. Luo. Inside were records of his wife secretly transferring the family's remaining assets, planning to flee with her lover. Almost simultaneously, another file was tossed in front of Mr. and Mrs. Luo. It contained detailed information about all of Mr. Luo's illegitimate children, along with proof that each child held a significant amount of shares in the Luo Corporation. Old Mr. Luo only glanced at it, and his eyes instantly became bloodshot, veins bulging on his forehead. He slapped Mrs. Luo hard across the face. "You treacherous, money-grabbing whore, funding your lover with our money." Stunned for a moment by the blow, Mrs. Luo saw the evidence of the illegitimate children and also snapped. She shrieked and lunged at him, her nails raking viciously across his face. "How dare you hit me? You're the one who's been raising all those bastards on the side. What about one Joe? How can you even say that to me?" Despair and rage consumed them completely. Like two rabid dogs, they tore into each other on the cold floor, cursing, clawing, biting, stripping away the last shreds of each other's dignity without a trace of decency. I quietly watched the farce unfold. The taste of power is truly intoxicating. 19 Step 2, Settling Accounts. I stood in the shadows of the street corner, coldly watching as a few hooligans repeatedly smashed the iron rod against Luo Wenzhou's legs. The dull sound of bones breaking, along with his shrill scream, was particularly pleasing in the night air. This scene, how familiar. In my past life, I floated in the air, watching helplessly as my brother had his legs broken like this, and all I could do was cry in despair. Now, the roles are reversed. I became the one who holds the chess pieces. Luo Wenzhou was dragged like trash and thrown back onto the steps of the Luo family villa. Along with him, explicit photos of Lin Qian engaging in various men in different occasions were thrown down, too graphic and obscene to look at. I want him to know clearly and painfully he was nothing but a joke from start to finish in my past life. If it weren't for his reckless decision to jump off the vehicle for his so-called deep love, how could my family have suffered such a catastrophe, leading to our ruin and deaths? He was the root cause of all the tragedies. There's no way I could let him off. Breaking his leg is just the first installment of the debt collected. Complete spiritual destruction is the best punishment for him. 20 The third step, destruction. Lin Qian's apartment, where she lived, exploded one night due to a gas leak, with flames engulfing her and the child in her womb. Just like my sister-in-law in my previous life, she was burned alive amidst endless pain and despair. I went to pay my respects on purpose. I saw Luo Wenzhou sitting in a wheelchair, his eyes hollow and despairing, and beside him, his parents who seemed to have aged 20 years overnight. The profound grief on their faces made the corners of my mouth involuntarily rise. "Su Nanqiao, what are you doing here? Get out. Have you come to gloat at our Luo family's misfortune?" The moment Mrs. Luo saw me, she lost control, shrieking as she lunged forward to drive me away. I immediately put on a perfectly measured look of sorrow, my voice tinged with hurt. "Auntie, how could you think that? I'm heartbroken over Lin Qian's sudden passing too. As an old classmate, can't I come to pay my last respects? If I'm not welcome here, I'll just leave." With that, I turned and left without a moment's hesitation. After all, the gruesome scene I wanted to see has already unfolded. 21 Luo's parents might have sensed something was amiss and attempted to flee abroad. However, the vehicle they were in, due to brake failure, crashed through the guardrail at high speed, rolling down the steep cliff. The fuel tank instantly exploded, completely engulfing them in towering flames. This scene bore an uncanny resemblance to the accidental car crash they had meticulously orchestrated for my parents in their previous life. I stood on the highest terrace of the Zhu family estate, gazing down at the sea of twinkling lights that was Sioux City. The bodyguard had just reported that Luo Wenzhou, unable to bear the thought of begging for his future, had ended his once glorious, now pathetic life in a filthy alley of the slums with a shard of glass. The evening breeze stirred my long hair. There was no wild triumph, only a profound sense of calm. Zhu Yunxian walked over to me and silently draped a shawl over my shoulders. "Is it all over?" His voice blended with the wind. "Yeah," I softly responded, my gaze still fixed on the distance, where once stood a formidable entity known as the Luo family, now completely erased. "I used everything at my disposal and gave everything I had to give. Finally, I have personally brought this bloody cycle, which began with his death and continued with the destruction of my family, to its end. Every second of my rebirth was for this moment of finality. Luo family, this is the price you were meant to pay." 22 After mailing the signed divorce papers to Zhu Yunxian, I left without a single word, vanishing completely from his world. A man like him, pure, forthright, noble, and composed, is like the radiant moon hanging high in the heavens, deserving of the most sincere, complete love and life. As for me, I am a vengeful spirit clawing its way back from hell, hands stained with blood and soul burdened with sin. This quest for vengeance has long since hollowed out my soul, leaving not a shred of warmth behind. Our marriage began with exploitation, so it should end with estrangement. This is the last thing I can do for him. Not disturbing him is the only last tenderness I can give him. Story 2. In this life, I deliberately avoided all encounters with Lu Qingchuan. He went to comfort his deceased friend's widow and daughter. Then I'll take care of his widowed comrade in arms. I walked the same path he did, yet he was the one who wept. Jiang Wei, did you know you're married? I couldn't help but laugh in disbelief. Oh, so you knew about it too. In his past life, Lu Qingchuan took care of his fallen comrade's wife and daughter. When Chen Mengyao fell ill, he brought her water and medicine. When Chen Mengyao cried, he comforted her tenderly. When Chen Mengyao mentioned the struggles of single parenting, he became her free chauffeur and nanny. Yet as his wife, I can barely get a moment of his time. I couldn't take it anymore and asked for a divorce, but Lu Qingchuan accused me of being intolerant toward his daughter and ex-wife, petty and unreasonable, so I marked an X on the calendar, silently starting my own divorce countdown. 1. It was also Lu Qingchuan's last chance to turn things around, but he blew it. On the final day of the countdown, he promised to share one last meal with me, only to abandon me at the restaurant to attend Chen Mingyao's daughter's birthday. I waited till nightfall without seeing him, then got targeted by thugs on my way home and met a brutal end. When I opened my eyes again, I was back at that fateful dinner table on the last day. Lin Feifei, Chen Mingyao's daughter, was tugging at Lu Qingchuan's sleeve with a pout, acting coquettishly. Uncle Lu, didn't you promise to celebrate my birthday with me? Today is my birthday. Her large, fluttering eyes welled up with tears. On the verge of crying, Lu Qingchuan's face softened with adoration as he swiftly gathered Lin Feifei into his arms, then turned to me with guilt-tinged eyes. Jiang Wei, could we have dinner when I get back? Feifei's birthday only comes once a year, I can't miss it. The familiarity of this scene struck me like lightning. I was certain I'd been reborn. I steadied my emotions and offered a gracious, gentle smile. Feifei's birthday takes priority. Go ahead, don't worry about me. Lu Qingchuan shot me a grateful glance, then scooped up Lin Feifei and said to Chen Mengyao beside him, Mengyao, let's go. The three of them standing together looked every bit the picture of a warm, happy family. While I was the odd one out, Chen Mengyao nodded, then turned to me with an affected look of remorse in her eyes. Vivi, I'm really sorry for crashing your dinner party. I don't even know how to make it up to you. Feifei just wouldn't stop insisting on coming. I saw right through her little act, then suddenly remembered walking home alone later might be risky. Besides, with this whole feast already served, they couldn't possibly expect me to foot the bill. I smiled magnanimously. No problem, pay the bill for me, then drive me home. I turned my gaze to Lu Qingchuan beside me. No need to come back, Lu Qingchuan, stay there and keep them company. I said it with magnanimous ease, completely ignoring Lu Qingchuan's stunned expression. Chen Mengyao forced a smile, her lips curling with visible discomfort. Okay. I packed up all the dishes from the table and got into Lu Qingchuan's car. In the back seat, of course, Chen Mengyao, holding Lin Feifei, instinctively took the front passenger seat. The atmosphere in the car was tense and awkward, but I couldn't have cared less. Stepping out of the car with groceries in hand, I walked away without a backward glance, leaving Lu Qingchuan behind me. Back home, my eyes fell on the red X marked on the calendar. That ridiculous divorce countdown from my past life. Without hesitation, I tore that page right off. True letting go isn't about self-indulgent divorce countdowns, but returning every ounce of pain they've caused you. It was past midnight when Lu Qingchuan returned. The sound of the door woke me. He came to my bedside, his voice laced with guilt. Wei, let's have dinner another day. I'll keep my promise to you. I lay with my back to him, deliberately avoiding eye contact. A bitter smile crossed my mind. He'd said those exact words when he promised me in our past life. My voice was flat. It's fine, the meal doesn't matter either way. Hearing my words, Lu Qingchuan froze momentarily before cautiously venturing to speak. Wei, are you upset with me? I closed my eyes, my voice devoid of emotion. Lu Qingchuan stood by the bed in prolonged silence, as if trying to decipher my thoughts. After a long silence, he finally lay down on the bed without a word. The next morning, Lu Qingchuan surprisingly woke up earlier than me. Wearing an apron, he brought breakfast from the kitchen, his lips curling into a gentle smile the moment he saw me. Good morning, sleepyhead, why not sleep a bit longer? I've already made breakfast for you. He untied his apron and told me cheerfully, I took the day off today, let's make up for that meal we missed yesterday. As I looked at the carefully prepared breakfast, my heart sank again. Sandwiches and fried eggs again, those are all Chen Mingyao's favorites, but What I really love are Chinese steamed buns and congee. I know because last time Lu Qingchuan personally made her those sandwiches and fried eggs. I swallowed the last flicker of emotion in my heart, refusing to even glance at Lu Qingchuan. Chen Mingyao must be starving. Go take this to her. Since it's your day off, you should go keep her company. Without waiting for Lu Qingchuan to recover from his dejection, I walked out the door first. Lu Qingchuan, I don't need your patronizing concern anymore. After composing myself, I threw myself into work the moment I arrived at the office. It's my shift at the clinic today. Patients kept streaming in and out, keeping me impossibly busy. It wasn't until dusk, as my shift was winding down, that Hui Yanting finally strode in with measured steps. Dr. Jiang, prescription. He was always a man of few words. I lifted my eyelids to glance at him, his erect posture and military uniform radiating heroic charisma. His bronze skin glowed with masculine vigor under the setting sun. Leg acting up again, I asked him out of habit. In his previous life, Hui Yanting often came to me for prescriptions. I was his primary physician. He responded with a grunt, avoiding eye contact, nodding. I swiftly wrote out his prescription. Truth be told, it's always the same few prescriptions for Hui Yanting's chronic leg injury. Hui Yanting took the prescription, stood up, and walked out in one fluid motion. It suddenly struck me that despite his frequent visits for medication, our entire interaction had never gone beyond those two brief exchanges. Never a word more than necessary. Even I only knew him in broad strokes, though we lived in the same military compound. Aloof, enigmatic, ice-cold. That was the entire garrison's impression of him. Born into poverty, he became the youngest officer in the district through battlefield scars and sacrifice. Countless people sought his friendship, but he remained an impenetrable iceberg, always keeping others at arm's length. Too, the only time you'd catch him smiling was when he walked side by side with his wife. Everyone in the military district said they were a perfect match, like two peas in a pod. Tragically, his wife passed away last year after battling an illness. From then on, the already taciturn Hui Yanting became even more withdrawn. Over time, Hui Yanting became completely marginalized by the military community. Wherever he went, a dark cloud seemed to follow overhead, casting a gloomy pall that drove people further away. If that's the case, a smirk played on my lips as his attending physician. Is it too much for me to show extra concern about his condition? If Lu Qingchuan is willing to care for his deceased friend's widow and daughter, then I can certainly look after his widowed comrade in arms. As Lu Qingchuan would say, it's only right to lend them more help. Hui Yanting usually comes to refill his prescription once a week. When he returned the following week, I made up an excuse to keep him in my office. Battalion Commander Hua, I'm afraid we're currently out of stock for your medication. My little white lie worked. Hui Yanting fell for it immediately. What should we do then? His brows furrowed slightly, yet those dark, gleaming eyes remained utterly calm. I bit my lip, forcing myself to stay composed and not give anything away, because I always had this nagging feeling that Hui Yanting's eyes were piercingly sharp, like they could see right through me any second. Ahem, is the pain too much? Maybe we should wait a bit longer, to make it more convincing. I deliberately played hard to get. Not yet. Hui Yanting remained expressionless. Yes, it hurts terribly. I immediately put on a troubled look. Oh dear, this is quite a predicament. Perhaps once the medicine arrives, I'll personally deliver it to you. I was hoping to get Hui Yanting's home address through this, but before I could even say send it, Hui Yanting beat me to it. I'll give you my address. He immediately pulled out a pen and paper from his pocket, quickly jotting down his home address. Dr. Jiang, I'll be waiting. With that, he stood up and left, his movements as brisk as ever. I sat there stunned for a long while, clutching his home address in my hand. Wait, it's going this smoothly, so smooth that I'm starting to feel like I'm the one being played, not him. Lu Qingchuan arrived right after Hui Yanting left. For the first time ever, he told me, Wei, I'm sorry, my breakfast probably doesn't suit your taste. I'll make it up to you properly. The car's downstairs. Let me take you to the state-run restaurant. We'll have that meal we missed. He spoke with genuine sincerity, his eyes slightly reddened. I took off my lab coat, gathered my things, and hardened my heart. Got some medical records to review tonight. Not going. I stepped past him and walked straight out. Lu Qingchuan stubbornly followed behind me all the way downstairs. The moment I stepped out, I spotted Lu Qingchuan's car. He was indeed waiting for me, but there was someone else in the car. Chen Mingyao was sitting in the passenger seat with Lin Feifei in her arms. Seeing me approach, Chen Mingyao theatrically pushed the car door open and stepped out. Vivi, sorry for being the third wheel again, but Qingchuan said it's fine to bring me along. The more the merrier. Chen Mengyao gave me a rather triumphant look. I pursed my lips and turned directly to Lu Qingchuan, bypassing Chen Mengyao. You go eat with them, have fun. I'll ride my bike back. I walked toward the bike shed, ready to ride my old-school bicycle home free, but Chen Mengyao suddenly grabbed my arm. Her eyes were red-rimmed, looking as pitiful as a little bunny. Wei Wei, do you hate me? In that case, I won't go. Fei Fei and I can walk home. You and Qingchuan can enjoy your meal in peace. With that, she turned her head away and wiped her tears, putting on this whole act like I was driving her away. Her performance almost made me laugh. Yet Lu Qingchuan kept falling for it, just like in our past life. Mengyao, don't say that. Nobody dislikes you. The heartache in his eyes was something I'd never seen before. The next instant, he turned and fixed me with a piercing glare. Jiang Wei, must you be so harsh? Is it really that hard to join us for a meal? Just as I expected, he pinned all the blame on me. I was about to argue when another car pulled up beside us. The car window rolled down, revealing Hui Yanting's chiseled, handsome face. Dr. Jiang, I've run out of painkillers for my leg. Got any medicine for a broken heart? The air grew thick with tension. I shook off Lu Qingchuan's grip on my arm and strode straight toward Hui Yanting's car. I have patients waiting. I'll take my leave now. Opening the car door, I slid into the passenger seat. With a stomp on the accelerator, Hui Yanting effortlessly left Lu Qingchuan in the dust. In the rearview mirror, I could still see the fury burning in Lu Qingchuan's eyes. Qingchuan, what's wrong? Chen Mengyao, standing beside him, shook his arm as he kept staring at the vanishing taillights. Lu Qingchuan composed himself and shook his head. It's nothing. Come on, Mengyao, let's grab some food. Before getting in the car, Lu Qingchuan glanced once more in the direction the vehicle had gone. Can't help but frown. Jiang Wei's a surgeon. Why would she prescribe heart medication? That exact question crossed my mind too. Only after getting in the car, I was so focused on getting away that I completely missed the odd tone in Hua Yanting's words. The air in the car was stifling, so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Stealing myself, I spoke up first. Thanks for earlier. In return, I hadn't finished speaking when Hui Yanting cut me off. Then I'll trouble Dr. Jiang with this. Come deliver the medicine to my place. He turned to look at me with earnest, shining eyes. I nodded, masking my guilty expression. All right, that's fair. Then I quickly averted my gaze to the window. The scenery outside whizzed past as I glimpsed Hui Yanting's foot pressing the accelerator from the corner of my eye. Why does it seem like his leg injury isn't that serious? Hui Yanting drove me home. After thanking him, I went upstairs. Surprisingly, Lu Qingchuan was waiting at home instead of having dinner with Chen Mengyao. Lu Qingchuan's expression shifted when he saw me walk in. He walked to the window, watching Hui Yanting drive away, his eyes darkening. Since when did Hui Yanting develop this bleeding heart tendency? He frowned, his tone laced with displeasure. I remained silent. He pressed on. Aren't you a surgeon? Since when do you deal with cardiac issues? He was getting agitated. I deliberately ignored his question and gave him a cool glance. Weren't you supposed to be having dinner with Chen Mengyao? Back so soon? I thought he'd be taking care of Chen Mengyao until midnight like usual. Lu Qingchuan was momentarily speechless. He'd originally gone to dinner with Chen Mengyao and Lin Feifei, but his mind was elsewhere. The entire meal, Hui Yanting's words kept echoing in his mind. Dr. Jiang, do you have any heartache medicine? For some reason, he suddenly felt unbearably anxious, even restless. After just a few bites, he excused himself with urgent business and hurried home. This was the first time he'd left Chen Mengyao and her daughter alone. He composed himself, casting an uneasy glance my way. Vivi, I think you should keep some distance from Hui Yanting. I cut him off before he could finish. He's my patient. Besides, his wife passed away last year. Now he's all alone and in poor health. It's really quite pitiful. It's only right that I look after him more. Isn't that what you told me? I lifted my gaze, meeting Lu Qingchuan's eyes with calm composure. Back when Chen Mingyao's husband passed away, these were the exact words Lu Qingchuan said to me. Now I've merely followed the same path he took. Why is he getting worked up about it now? The next day was the weekend. I left early to deliver medicine to Hui Yanting. Lu Qingchuan also received a call from Chen Mengyao. First thing in the morning, Lin Feifei was throwing a tantrum, insisting Uncle Lu take her to the park. I saw right through her little game. Last night Lu Qingchuan ditched her and came straight home to see me. Of course she couldn't swallow that, but to my surprise, Lu Qingchuan actually refused. Mengyao, I'm really sorry. Can we do this another time? I've got something important today. I heard Lu Qingchuan say this while putting on my shoes by the door. As he spoke, he glanced in my direction over the landline. Chen Mingyao's voice was clearly choked with tears. Qingchuan, did what happened yesterday upset Wei Wei? It's alright, you go ahead and spend time with her, I'll make sure Feifei doesn't disturb you. But no sooner had she spoken than Lin Feifei's cries erupted from the phone. I want Uncle Lu to stay with me. Why, does Uncle Lu not want Feifei anymore? He promised Daddy he'd take care of us. The rest of our conversation was shut behind that door as I closed the door. I caught one last glimpse of Lu Qingchuan's torn expression. When it comes down to it, he still can't let go of Chen Mengyao and her daughter, but none of that concerns me anymore. Carrying the medicine, I arrived at Hui Yanting's house following the address he gave me. To my surprise, it was a freestanding house. Such homes were rare in the entire military compound. I knocked on the door, and Hui Yanting answered almost immediately. The moment he saw it was me, his relaxed brow immediately furrowed with a pained expression. The medicine's here, I nodded. Right here. I took the medicine out of my bag and handed it to him. Without a word, he tore open the package, popped 2 pills straight into his mouth. Looks like the pain's pretty intense. I couldn't help but wince in sympathy. Hui Yanting's old injury must be serious, probably never healed properly and left him with chronic pain. He took his medicine and looked at me with gentle eyes. I stood outside the door while he remained frozen inside, neither of us making a move. Dr. Jiang, could you help me up? He suddenly reached out his arms, seeking my assistance. The door opened pretty quickly just now, but since he brought it up, I couldn't bring myself to outright refuse. I murmured in agreement and walked over, letting Hui Yanting rest his hand on my shoulder. The weight of his 6-foot-plus frame leaned against me with just the right pressure, but the close contact carried an undeniable hint of intimacy. A faint warmth rose to my cheeks. Hui Yanting suddenly said with a chuckle, Dr. Jiang, no need to be nervous. My breath hitched as heat instantly spread from my cheeks to the tips of my ears. I quickly helped him onto the couch before standing up. Don't forget to take your medicine on time. I brought the medicine, so I'll take my leave now. With that, I bolted out the door like a startled rabbit. 5. To my surprise, I ran straight into Lu Qingchuan, who'd just caught up. Seeing me emerge from Hui Yanting's place, Lu Qingchuan's face darkened. Lu Qingchuan, what are you doing here? I thought he'd be with Chen Mengyao. Lu Qingchuan rushed over and grabbed my hand. Come home with me. His tone was harsh, domineering, and brooked no refusal. Just as I opened my mouth to speak, I heard Hui Yanting's helpless wailing from behind the door. Dr. Jiang, it hurts so much. As a doctor, my instinct was screaming at me to turn back, but Lu Qingchuan wouldn't allow it. Go, leave him be. Lu Qingchuan's fury burned as his glare at the Hui family's gate turned murderous. Just as I hesitated, Hui Yanting's screams from behind the door grew even louder. Ugh, Dr. Jiang. The next moment, he actually crawled out through the doorway, beads of sweat dripping profusely from his forehead. With a sudden resolve, I wrenched my hand free from Lu Qingchuan's grip. I can't just stand by and do nothing, leaving those words hanging. I rushed toward Hui Yanting. I steadied him with both hands. Are you okay? Let me examine you. I reached to roll up Hui Yanting's pant leg. Hui Yanting winced in pain, grabbing my hand with a pitiful, pleading look in his eyes. Dr. Jiang, it hurts so much. You're my only hope. Dr. Jiang, it's so cold and hard here. Could you help me to the couch? His pleading tone and glistening eyes made him look heartbreakingly vulnerable as he gazed at me. My heart melted. Even the toughest man has his vulnerable moments. I nodded and struggled to help him up, maintaining the same position as before, though this time Hui Yanting held on tighter. Paying no mind, I gritted my teeth and managed to get Hui Yanting onto the couch. Then I quickly rolled up his pant legs. My breath caught at the sight of those vicious scars. For some reason, my eyes suddenly stung with unshed tears. So these were the legs of a war hero. After thoroughly examining Hui Yanting, I found nothing seriously wrong. Yet Hui Yanting kept whining about the pain. Lu Qingchuan, who had witnessed everything from the doorway, looked absolutely livid. Hui Yanting, you're quite the actor. The sheer malice in his words stunned me. I turned back and shot him a reproachful look. Lu Qingchuan, he's a patient. Was that really necessary? Your words were downright cruel. Just as Lu Qingchuan was about to retort, Hui Yanting cut him off. Commander Lu, please don't be angry with Dr. Jiang. This is all my fault for taking up your time together as a couple, but I'm genuinely in unbearable pain. With pleading eyes, he said, considering I was wounded serving our country, could you let Dr. Jiang examine me? I examined him while silently pondering to myself, doesn't Hui Yanting usually speak very little? Why is he so talkative today, and why does he suddenly sound exactly like Chen Mengyao? But the thought only lingered in my mind for a fleeting moment before I refocused on examining Hui Yanting. Shortly after, I stood up. It must be a recurrence of your old injury, you Must keep taking your medication without interruption. I carefully rolled down Hui Yanting's pant legs and gave him gentle instructions. Hui Yanting nodded obediently. Can we go home now? At the doorway, Lu Qingchuan urged impatiently in a cold tone though reluctant. The medicine had been delivered and it was time for me to leave. The next instant, Hui Yanting suddenly grabbed my arm. Dr. Jiang, can you cook? I'm starving. Ever since I started living alone, I haven't had a proper meal. They say taking medicine on an empty stomach can damage your gut. He gave me that pleading look again. Gotta admit, Hui Yanting's really pitiful. Well, alright then. The moment I agreed, Lu Qingchuan spoke up again. Stop pretending. Isn't there a cafeteria? Why aren't you going? He glared at Hui Yanting with a look that could kill. Hui Yanting glanced at his own leg and said airily to Lu Qingchuan, can't you see I'm having trouble walking? On the way back, Lu Qingchuan's face was dark with anger. Halfway through the drive, he finally couldn't hold back anymore. That Hui Yanting is deliberately keeping you around, can't you see? His brows furrowed tightly. I turned my head and gave him a cold look. Can't you see Chen Mengyao was deliberately keeping you there? 6. Lu Qingchuan was instantly rendered speechless by my remark. The silence during the ride grew unbearably tense. The car pulled up outside our apartment building. Two gaunt figures, one tall, one small, swayed in the chilly night breeze. It was Chen Mengyao and Lin Feifei. The moment Lu Qingchuan's car appeared, Chen Mengyao rushed forward with tear-reddened eyes. Qingchuan, you're finally back. Feifei is sick, she's running a high fever. Please take a look. I'm at my wit's end. Sobbing, she pressed Feifei's forehead against Lu Qingchuan. The moment Lu Qingchuan touched it, his expression turned grave. It's scalding hot. Get in the car now. I'm taking you to the hospital. He just left me behind and carried Lin Feifei straight into the car. Chen Mengyao quickly scrambled into the passenger seat as she passed by me. She whispered just loud enough for me to hear, Lu Qingchuan is mine. Jiang Wei, don't even think about taking him from me. The corner of my mouth twitched as I couldn't help but laugh. Don't worry, this trash is all yours. You can keep it. With that, I went upstairs without looking back. I woke up in the middle of the night, but Lu Qingchuan still hadn't returned. The phone rang first. It was actually Hui Yanting calling. How did you get my home number? I was stunned by Hui Yanting's resourcefulness, but all he did was complain about his pain. Dr. Jiang, could you bring some painkillers over? I'm in terrible pain. I'll send a car to pick you up. I glanced at the pitch-black sky outside and was about to refuse when Hui Yanting abruptly hung up. Within minutes, Hui Yanting's car honked impatiently downstairs. After much deliberation, I dressed properly and went downstairs. The driver whisked me to Hui Yanting's residence at breakneck speed. The moment the door opened, Hui's towering frame blocked the entrance like an impenetrable wall. The next second, the wall was about to collapse. Instinctively, I reached out to steady him. Hui Yanting. Hui Yanting rested his head on my shoulder, his voice weak. Dr. Jiang, I feel like I'm dying. His forehead felt burning hot to the touch. The moment I touched it, my jaw nearly hit the floor in shock. He's burning up. Hui Yanting, what have you done? I demanded. Sharply, he wearily lifted his eyelids. I was in so much pain. I took a lot of painkillers. As he spoke, I caught sight of the empty blister pack on the coffee table from the corner of my eye. Did he really take the whole pack of painkillers? My brow furrowed as I signaled to the driver behind me. Give me a hand here. Help lay him down. We can't make it to the hospital in time. Induce vomiting now. The driver didn't dare delay either, rushing over to help me clumsily carry Hui Yanting onto the bed. I made him drink plenty of water before inducing vomiting. Hui Yanting turned pale from vomiting. Thankfully, he was out of danger. After some basic physical cooling measures, his fever gradually subsided, but all this commotion kept me busy until daybreak. When Lu Qingchuan returned home, he realized I wasn't there. By the time I got home the next evening, Lu Qingchuan had been waiting for me the entire day. 7. His sunken eyes and weathered face made him look years older. When he saw me, tears glistened in his eyes. Jiang Wei, tell me the truth, you don't love me anymore, do you? His voice trembled slightly, his whole being so fragile it seemed he might shatter at the slightest touch. I hesitated, wanting to speak the truth, yet fearing it might be too cruel. Yet my silence itself was an answer. Lu Qingchuan understood instantly. He closed his eyes briefly, tears suddenly streaming down. Jiang Wei, did you know you're married? Only then did I curl my lips into a mocking smile. Oh. So you knew all along. Did it ever cross his mind that he was married when he kept running to Chen Mingyao's place? Lu Qingchuan remained completely oblivious to his own hypocrisy. His eyes turned frosty. Jiang Wei, let's get divorced. The moment finally came when he said those words to me. I parted my lips to agree, only to see him stand up and mark an X on the calendar with his pen. Jiang Wei, I'm giving you one last chance. If you still haven't changed your mind by this date, I'll truly have to walk away. Now it's his turn to set up that ridiculous divorce countdown. I couldn't help but sigh inwardly. What about Chen Mengyao? I wondered how Lu Qingchuan would deal with her. Lu Qingchuan's expression turned icy, his eyes devoid of any warmth. I've already arranged for someone else to take care of them. Her affairs are no longer any concern of mine. Hearing his callous yet resolute words, I couldn't help but let out a mocking laugh. Why wasn't he this determined in our past life? The grass is always greener on the other side. Once within reach, even the most cherished becomes ordinary. Lu Qingchuan's divorce countdown stood at 5 days. Those 5 days, I was either at work or taking care of Hui Yanting. I never meant for it to come to this, but the moment I clocked out, Hui Yanting's chauffeur was already waiting at the hospital entrance. Then he leaned his head out from the rear window, his gaze fragile and pleading. Dr. Jiang, this dish is delicious. It tastes just like my sister's cooking. Could you make it for me again sometime? The slightest hesitation on my part would make Hui Yanting look like he was about to cry. I knew it was too much to ask. He looks like he's about to fall apart any second. Then he began murmuring to himself, Dr. Jiang, you probably don't know this. I grew up without parents. My elder sister begged for food to raise me. My heart ached unbearably before he could finish speaking. All right, I promise, please stop talking. The next instant, he flashed an utterly innocent smile. Thank you, Dr. Jiang, you're such a kind person. And so, I endured 5 whole days of Hui Yanting clinging to me under this kind person label. By the time I finally managed to get away and return home, Lu Qingchuan had already left. A divorce agreement lay on the table alongside a handwritten note he'd left. Jiang Wei, I'd been deployed to the Gobi Desert on a classified mission. If you change your mind, come find me there. I'll always wait for you. He's waiting for me to regret this. I curled my lips in a bitter smile. That'll never happen. I picked up the pen and signed the divorce papers without hesitation. Lu Qingchuan, unlike you, I don't hesitate when making decisions. Hui Yanting somehow got wind of my divorce news. From that day onward, he became even more relentless. I gradually began noticing something odd about Hui Yanting's injuries. For instance, I'd often see him walking perfectly fine from upstairs, but the moment he spotted me, he'd suddenly start limping. Another time, he'd never mention hunger when I was around, but the second I got up to leave, he'd whine about being starving and put on this pitiful act to guilt me into cooking for him. Then there was the time his security detail mysteriously vanished into thin air whenever I showed up. Bottom line, he seemed hell-bent on painting himself as this helpless, abandoned soul in front of me, but I have no proof. To gather evidence of Hui Yanting faking his illness, I specifically invited him on a holiday outing. Hui Yanting agreed without hesitation. At first, Hui Yanting still limped his way into having the driver take us to the countryside. I had trouble walking throughout the entire trip. It wasn't until my accidental fall into the river that Hui Yanting finally revealed himself. I watched as he sprinted into the water and fished me out while I pretended to drown. Wei, are you okay? Don't worry, we'll reach the shore soon. He held me close, his olive drab shirt soaked through and clinging to his firm chest. Nestled in his arms, I felt my cheeks grow warm. For some reason, I couldn't bring myself to meet his gaze. Hui Yanting, you lied to me. There's nothing wrong with your leg at all. He paused at the words, remaining silent for a few seconds before replying with amusement in his voice. So you were testing me. Nice acting. Hearing this, I grew irritated, remembering all the performances he'd been putting on for me lately. I struggled free from his embrace. You're the one who's acting. Hui Yanting, tell me the truth. What's your real motive for getting close to me? I glared up at him, my entire frame dwarfed by his towering silhouette. He lowered his gaze, those profound eyes locking onto mine. Wei, because I love you. I only realized later that in our past life, Hui Yanting had already been trying to get close to me. Every time he came for medicine, it was just an excuse to see me. No, his old injury never actually flared up again. When he took me to his home and opened the cabinet, my heart lurched as years' worth of accumulated medicine came tumbling out with a clatter. How is this medicine? These are the proofs of Hui Yanting's love for me all these years. If you came to see me, why wouldn't you say more than a few words? Hui Yanting curled his lips into a faint smile, his voice returning to its usual composed demeanor. Because by then, you'd already married Lu Qingchuan. It suddenly dawned on me that every interaction I'd had with Hui Yanting was Part of his carefully woven web. He knew about Chen Mengyao. He knew I'd deliberately brought him the medicine. He was playing along with their scheme all along. I wiped the dampness from the corner of my eye and asked him with deliberate sarcasm, "What about your late wife? Didn't you love her?" After spending these days together, I simply can't believe Hui Yanting could be that heartless, falling for someone else barely a year after his wife's passing. Hui Yanting's eyes turned icy at those words. "What wife are you talking about? She's the only family I have left. My elder sister." "What? Are people in the military district spreading rumors that she's my wife? So this is what they mean by looking like a married couple?" I pulled Hui Yanting into a tight embrace, tears welling up in my eyes. I suddenly saw a different kind of masculinity in this man. Lu Qingchuan was fickle and emotionally detached, but Hui Yanting remained steadfast through it all. In the days that followed, Hui Yanting recounted the scene of our first meeting. Back then, Hui Yanting was still living in the countryside with his sister, begging for food to survive. One year, I ran into Hui Yanting while visiting relatives in the countryside. He was crouched by the roadside, clutching a chipped bowl in his hands, stretching out his skinny arms pitifully at passers-by with pleading eyes. Though younger than him, I grew up in a military compound with every comfort imaginable. I desperately tugged at my father's sleeve, begging him to tell the driver to stop. When the car halted, I grabbed all my pocket money from Mom and rushed toward Hui Yanting. "Here, little brother, this is for you." Back then I was incredibly generous, handing over every last penny of my pocket money without hesitation. It was 1973, I was just 8 years old, and I gave him a whole 3 yuan. In those days, Hui Yanting had never seen that kind of money before. Later, Hui Yanting told me with a smile, "Had it not been for those 3 yuan, my sister and I would have starved to death that winter." As I grew older, I carved out a future through military service and finally gave my sister the comfortable life she deserved. Became the youngest officer in the military district. If only, my sister. His eyes glistened as he spoke. Then he pulled me into a tight embrace. "Vivi, you know what? All these years, I've been searching for you." That's when I remembered the look in Hui Yanting's eyes when he first appeared in my office years ago. I froze for a moment, shock, delight, and overwhelming longing, but by then, I'd completely forgotten about him. With that thought, I reached out and gently hooked my arm around Hui Yanting's neck. "Hui Yanting, I'll never forget you again." After Lu Qingchuan left for the Gobi Desert, he never received any word of my regret. Agreed, he finally couldn't hold back anymore. He rushed back the moment the mission ended. Sadly, what he received was news of my marriage to Hui Yanting on the wedding day. Lu Qingchuan stood at the restaurant entrance with weary eyes. It wasn't until Hui Yanting and I came out to see off the guests that I finally spotted him. I pretended not to notice his desperate longing gaze. Arm in arm with Hui Yanting, we simply accepted the guests' parting blessings one by one. The past is something I no longer wish to dwell upon. I later heard from friends that Lu Qingchuan still couldn't shake off Chen Mingyao's persistent advances. Chen Mingyao threatened to take the matter to their superiors if Lu Qingchuan refused to marry her. After all, everyone had witnessed the nature of their relationship over the years. Unable to withstand the pressure, Lu Qingchuan eventually gave in. After marrying Chen Mingyao, I'd occasionally run into him in the military compound. The youthful vigor in his eyes was gone, replaced by regret and exhaustion. Several times he tried to speak to me, but I always walked away first. We're better off as strangers. Hui Yanting is the only one in my heart, my sight, and my thoughts, and Hui Yanting is just like me. The end. Story 2. Even after 2 rebirths, Cui Hezhou couldn't escape his fate of marrying me. By the third life, he finally surrendered to destiny. He stopped abandoning me in the wilderness to save his sister first, nor did he despise the birthmark by my eye anymore, calling it heaven's mark to recognize me. His will remained unshaken as ever. Crawling from the slums, he collapsed before me covered in frost, waiting like in our past lives for me to lift him up and bring him home. This time, heaven took pity. It was his sister who lifted him up. I picked up another, even more pitiful little beggar and said with a laugh that I'd raise this one instead. Cui Hezhou stared blankly as I walked past his outstretched hand, overwhelmed with joy, so much so that he seemed on the verge of tears. A gloomy, snow-laden day, the leaden clouds hanging heavy, the scout returned with news that the Yellow River had frozen over, making passage impossible. My sister sighed, gently stroking my drowsy face in the carriage before lifting the curtain to instruct the servants, "Find us an inn nearby for now. Jenner is exhausted too." I clambered from her lap and pressed my face against the carriage window. The snow fell heavily, as if even the clouds had frozen solid. Beggars huddled shivering in ramshackle shelters, while kind-hearted merchants brought them leftover scraps from diners, the beggars swarmed like ants and snatched everything in an instant. Only 2 of them didn't join the scramble. One seemed too proud to bother, while the other, perhaps too emaciated, lacked even the strength to rise, his matted hair framing a figure curled in the corner. My elder sister leaned in, pressing a hand to my forehead as she pulled me back, instructing the wet nurse to fetch a rabbit fur headband for me. This wind carries an ill omen, catching a chill would be no laughing matter. They didn't let me out until I was bundled up like a rice dumpling. No sooner had my feet touched the ground than a man collapsed before me, clutching my cloak with such force I nearly toppled onto him. Good heavens, my sister caught me in her arms, frowning at the unconscious figure on the ground. The nursemaid took one glance and gasped, "Poor lad, his body's covered in abuse marks." My devout Buddhist sister couldn't bear suffering, seeing so many refugees here. She paid to set up a soup kitchen, then helped up the grimy boy still clutching my robe desperately. I kept my hands to myself, watching silently. Suddenly I asked, "Sister, are you really keeping this filthy beggar?" The boy's tightly shut eyelids fluttered faintly. My sister pinched my cheek with a resigned smile. "Jenner, mind your manners, treat everyone with respect, no matter their station." "Understood." After a moment's thought, she said, "Uncle's military camp happens to be recruiting young refugees for training. Since fate brought us together, why not take this one home? It'd be a good deed." Playing the age card, I ignored my sister's nagging, wriggled free from her grasp, and dashed toward the huddle of beggars in the tattered shack, pointing at the scrawny little urchin. I grinned mischievously, eyes crinkling with amusement. "If sister gets to keep one, then I want one too, and I'm taking this particular one." No one else noticed, but I saw it. The boy feigning unconsciousness beside my sister suddenly snapped his eyes open at my words, staring at me in utter disbelief too. Studying his expression covertly, I realized he was none other than Cui Hezhou, the figure who'd been haunting my dreams these past months. Those fragmented dreams seemed to recount a story from some book. In my dream, I was the insufferable younger sister, not only disfigured by a birthmark near my eye, but also spoiled and willful, snatching everything I fancied, including my elder sister's beloved, Cui Hezhou. Despite 2 lifetimes of rebirth, Cui Hezhou, the boy I'd clung to since childhood, never escaped his fate of marrying me across both lifetimes. No matter how cruelly he treated me, abandoning me in wilderness where wild dogs nearly tore me apart, mocking my looks until I hid my birthmark with decorative patches, or trusting quack doctors whose remedies left my skin festering, turning me into a laughingstock, I persisted. I was hell-bent on marrying him, as if cursed by some dark magic. The loves and hatreds of 2 lifetimes tangled endlessly in my dreams. Every face, every scene felt hauntingly familiar. So when the servant uttered those eerily familiar words about the frozen yellow river stranding us in this snowbound town, I jolted awake and peered outside, and there he was, Cui Hezhou, just as I remembered him in his youth. By nature I've always been a playful soul, drawn to tales of spirits, demons, and reincarnation. Stumbling upon this moment where dream and reality blurred didn't frighten me, it set my pulse racing with anticipation. In my dream I was such a fool, foolish enough to love someone who didn't respect me. Then in reality, I'll make sure Cui Hezhou's 3rd reincarnation ends up with nothing. I gazed at the little beggar I'd just brought home, lying unconscious on the bed after taking medicine. His bony fingers trembled slightly, as if troubled by some unease, so I reached out and clasped his ice-cold fingertips. As if comforted by the warmth, the tension in his furrowed brow gradually eased. I chuckled softly, "Just watch how I'll groom Cui Hezhou's future rival to outshine him, then Big Sis is bound to fancy this Zhou fellow. By then, Chui's sweetheart will have left him, and he'll be outmatched in both wealth and influence. His meltdown will be priceless." 3. I said I'd take good care of Zhouka, but truth be told, I'm not very good at it. I've never been good with living creatures. Every stray cat or dog I brought home ended up being taken care of by my sister when she couldn't bear to watch anymore. The only things I've ever managed to raise properly were silk dolls. That's why this time I'm determined to roll up my sleeves and do it all myself. Don't want to start off on the wrong foot. Good heavens, miss, you needn't bathe him yourself, he's a grown lad. The nursemaid returned with a basin to find me pinning the flustered youth in the tub, comb raised to groom his hair. She stood aghast, utterly at a loss. I saw nothing amiss, treating him as my living doll to dress and fuss over at will. She enunciated each word deliberately. "He belongs to me, I'd do anything," cradling the boy's damp, frozen face in my hands. I leaned in until our breaths mingled, gazing into his pitch-black eyes. "Your name is Zhou Ke now. From this moment, I am your mistress, you shall obey me for eternity." The boy's fingers whitened as they gripped the edge of the bathtub. I demanded petulantly, "Nod, now." He held my gaze then nodded. I smiled contentedly, holding up the comb. "All right now, I'm going to tidy up that messy hair of yours, hold still." Zhou Ke forced his body to relax, his soaked clothes floating on the water's surface, but I'd overestimated myself. After just 2 strokes, I spotted something moving in his hair. Terrified, I flung the comb away and shoved him aside roughly. "Ew, lice, disgusting." The nursemaid pulled me away. "My precious young miss, such dirty work isn't for the likes of you. Come now, have your fun and leave it be, I'll take care of it." But something in the nursemaid's words must have struck Zhou Ke wrong. Terrified I might reject him, he grabbed the scissors from the basket by the tub and began frantically hacking at his own hair. Several wild slashes later, his cheek was bleeding where the blades had nicked him. Both the nursemaid and I stood frozen in shock. Strands of hair and drops of blood drifted down as the water's surface lay in disarray. Clutching the scissors, his short messy hair made him look like a stray wolf pup, clueless how to please. He could only stare at me helplessly. Hearing the commotion, my sister rushed over and froze at the sight, eyeing the shears in the boy's hand with concern. She coaxed me closer and teased, "Does Jenner want to keep a little playmate? Should big sister get you a different one?" By the doorway, a neatly groomed Chui Hezhou gazed at me, offering a gentle smile. I was completely baffled. Just as I was about to say he wasn't worthy, footsteps sounded behind me. Suddenly I was yanked from my sister's embrace and pressed against a damp, bony chest. His adolescent voice sounded damaged, hoarse and stubborn. "Miss, mine." A shadow flickered across Chui Hezhou's eyes. I turned and flicked Zhou Ke's forehead. "Silly, you should say, I am my lady's." His eyes seemed to brighten from the flick. He nodded. For having stayed too long visiting our ancestral home to pay respects to our parents, we needed to hurry back to Uncle's house for New Year. As soon as the river thawed, my sister set out with us. I appeared visibly downcast, because I knew once we returned to Uncle's house, I'd revert to being that unwelcome second cousin. Just like in my dreams, unlike my sister, graceful, proper, and always knowing the right thing to do, I could never measure up. Everyone adored her, from the elders to our cousins. After our parents passed, she took me under her wing with such competence that all of the capital sang her praises. But me, this unsightly birthmark by my eye makes people recoil instinctively, and my temper's worse. Cross me even slightly, and I'll repay the offense tenfold. They only tolerate me for my sister's sake. Eventually I made peace with it. Having her is enough. She's been so good to me. I want to give her the finest things in this world. I watched Zhou Ke in the carriage, diligently carving a birthday gift for my sister. His short hair had a small braid I'd woven on the side, tipped with sapphire beads. His face had filled out slightly, with only a faint scar remaining from the scissors. His eyes were particularly striking, like the moon emerging at twilight. No doubt he'll grow into a handsome man someday. His lips pressed tight as his deft hands carved the jade Buddha into exquisite smoothness with a knife. Several discarded attempts still lay in the box beside him. When finished, he handed it to me. This one seemed to be his finest work. I turned it admiringly in my hands. "Yes, this is the most beautiful one. It's for my sister." He shook his head and insisted I wear it. I scolded him. "How many times must I say it? Your sister comes first. You must prioritize her over me." I told him to put it away, but he turned away pretending not to hear, picked up his carving knife, and muttered bluntly, "She's taken care of. Someone treats her well." Chui Hezhou. I curled my lip in disdain. "What's he worth? You're leagues ahead of him. One day you'll have him groveling at your feet." Reduced to tears, Zhou Ke froze momentarily before raising his eyes with an inscrutable gaze. "Do you hate him?" I nodded. Zhou Ke forced a strange, faint smile. "But he seems to like you so much he'd rather see me dead." His words sent chills down my spine. "You're overthinking it," I said incredulously. The bitter winter wind howled outside as carriage bells jingled. We were nearing the capital. Snuggling into the embroidered blanket my sister made, I grew drowsy and murmured with closed eyes, "No one would ever love me, except for sister." The room had been silent for so long that as I was drifting off, I thought I heard someone whisper, "Oh really? But I think too many people like you, so many it makes me want to kill someone." I turned over, convincing myself I must have misheard. 5 At the break of dawn, the carriage passed through the city gates. The Bai family had sent servants to wait at daybreak. "You've made it just in time, miss. The master and mistress have been asking after you constantly, worried you'd be stranded in Bingzhou for the new year." Aunt's personal maid, Mother Chiao, hurried forward and solicitously helped my sister alight from the carriage. My sister pulled her hood tighter Exhaling a frosty breath as she gazed upward, who knew the capital could have such heavy snow, she turned and reached back toward me, who'd fallen a few steps behind. Come, Jenner, time to go home. The by-family members swept past me as if I were thin air, their puzzled gazes fixed firmly on Master Chui and Master Zhou. Instead, seeing me frozen in place, my sister stepped forward, took my hand, and cheerfully explained why she'd taken in both of them since Chui Hezhou was the one my sister openly sheltered. The Bai family held their tongues, but their gazes turned noticeably frostier when they glanced at Zhou Ku beside me. I'd grown accustomed to this blatant favoritism, yet I turned to look at Zhou Ku, who seemed oblivious to the deliberate chill in the air, offering me a quiet smile. The group passed the screen wall and walked through several moon gates before arriving at the inner chamber's heated pavilion. My aunt came out personally to lead my sister inside, tenderly chafing her cold hands. My child, you must be exhausted from the journey. As always, she didn't notice me, speaking only to my sister. Your uncle mentioned before he left, we really must move your parents' graves back to our ancestral home, like fallen leaves returning to roots. This annual pilgrimage north is exhausting, not to mention improper. The two women entered the warm pavilion from behind. I saw my elder sister shake her head and murmur, father and mother guarded the frontier half their lives, burying them in the northern lands was their final wish. As their daughter, failing to properly care for them while they lived is already an unforgivable lapse. How could I possibly defy their will? My aunt took my sister's hand and led her to the raised seating area, sighing meaningfully, you've always been the sensible one. I sat to the side, lost in thought. Suddenly someone plopped down beside me and called out, hey, Shizhen, that odd-looking short-haired fellow under the corridor. Did you pick him up somewhere? I turned my head, glancing at the visitor outside before fixing my gaze on aunt's youngest daughter, Bai Yun. That girl took particular delight in opposing me. I ignored her. With a cheeky grin, she stretched out her palm. Give it to me, she said. I'll trade you these gold bracelets for it. Without even lifting my eyelids, I replied, no. The girl let out a scornful laugh. Do you really think mimicking Shi Yuguan's saintly act by dragging beggars home will make father and mother notice you? Bai Yun leaned in. Let me make this clear. As long as you're under this roof, you'll always be beneath everyone's notice. Her eyes curved into crescents. What's the harm in handing over some stray trinket? At least you got something tangible this time, unlike those pathetic attempts to curry favor by sewing clothes and shoes for father, mother, and your brothers, only to have them tossed to the servants without a second glance. I finally deigned to glance her way, my smile never reaching my eyes. Fine, if you can tame him and make him follow you willingly. Child's play. I've broken stallions fiercer than this. Bai Yun swiftly slipped off her golden bracelet and handed it to me. Later, Bai Yun took Zhou Ku away, repeating my words verbatim. Zhou Ku seemed somewhat heartbroken. I averted my gaze, refusing to meet his eyes, and idly toyed with the pair of golden bracelets. 6. I didn't quite trust Zhou Ku. He acted far too obedient around me. Nothing like the defiant figure who'd confronted Chui Hezhou in my dreams. How could someone pledge their unwavering loyalty to another person so quickly? I don't buy it. He needs to be tested. My sister disagreed with my approach. If he's entrusted himself to you, you should return that trust. Isn't he your playmate? I said I'd trust him once he passed the trial. My sister pressed her hand on my head like a goddess enlightening the foolish masses. But he doesn't know that. All he knows is you broke your promise and abandoned him. Jenner, this isn't a test, you're hurting him. I didn't understand, but elder sister was always right. At dawn the next day, I hastily freshened up and rushed to Bai Yun's courtyard. Struggling through the uncleared snowy path with dampened skirts, I suddenly encountered Chui Hezhou dressed in his martial attire. Well, he hesitated. Miss, I remained silent. He moved to assist me. The snow's too deep to walk through. Hold on to my arm. Smack. I slapped his hand away, bristling like a porcupine. Get lost. Chui Hezhou froze, his fingers curling limply at his sides. Am I really so detestable to you, miss? What exactly have I done to offend you? I kicked through the snow, the biting cold seeping into my soles. There's not a single thing about you I like. Move aside, stop blocking the way. Chui Hezhou's lips twisted. Oh really? Watching me stagger through the deep snow, he suddenly reached out, scooped me up in one arm, and carried me straight across the snowy path before setting me down under the covered walkway. Let go. My grip left red marks all over his face. Steadying myself, I shoved him hard and glared. To my surprise, instead of the cold cruelty from my dream, he smiled and bent forward with what looked like tenderness in his eyes. Eat up, little miss. When you grow up, you'll come to like me. Pure delusion. He even knelt to wipe the melting snow from my toes with his sleeve, such bizarre behavior that it left me momentarily stunned. Chui Hezhou didn't linger long, with my uncle beginning to select refugees for the Royal Guard reserves at the training grounds. He had to hurry off. This is too important to let Zhou Ke miss out. I need to go get him. Shaking my head, I pushed aside Chui Hezhou's odd behavior for now, gathered my soaked and cumbersome skirt, and ran into Bai Yun's courtyard on the left side of the garden. I'd assumed that lazybones Bai Yun would still be asleep, perfect for whisking Zhou Ke away unnoticed, but the moment I stepped into the courtyard, I heard her shrieking hysterically, "How dare you resist when I order you to kneel?" 7. Snow startled loose from the eaves. It pattered onto the youth's gaunt shoulders, pinned by several burly servants. He stubbornly kept one knee raised, his bleeding fingers clenched around a barbed iron whip. The eyes that usually gazed at me with docile warmth now burned with terrifying darkness. "I only kneel before the dead." Bai Yun let out a mirthless laugh. Having trained in martial arts with her uncle since childhood, she was no stranger to violence. Releasing her grip, she barked an order for blades to be brought. "That foolish girl really brought back a tough one, didn't she? Very well, let's see how long your defiance lasts today." The blade was reverently presented. It was the very broadsword my uncle carried to war. "Cousin," I rushed out, swallowing my pride for the first time as I pleaded, "I take it back. Please return him to me." Bai Yun looked at me as if she'd gone deaf, her face twisting in utter bewilderment. I shoved the gold bracelet into her arms, brusquely pushed aside Zhou Ke's attendant, yanked him to his feet, and planted myself protectively in front of him. To shut Bai Yun up, I had to bribe her with 2 jade bangles and promise 2 months' worth of copying assignments for her etiquette tutor. Only then did she reluctantly let us go, muttering about me having lost my marbles while admiring her ill-gotten jade bracelets. Zhou remained silent the entire way as I escorted him to the training grounds. My sister was right. I'd hurt him. After always being the one getting hurt, I'd become the domineering type this time. It felt awful. I promised to take him under my wing, yet failed to protect him, just like how my uncle vowed at my mother's deathbed to take care of me. He failed to keep that promise, so did I. As we reached the training grounds, Zhou Ke passed by me with downcast eyes, his tone deliberately deferential. "Thank you for seeing me this far, young mistress. This subordinate shall take his leave now." I couldn't understand why my heart felt clogged with damp, tattered cotton. Hadn't I only meant to use him to spite Chui Hezhou? There was no need to actually treat him as a companion. Truth be told, he was just a beggar, a servant providing him food, clothes, and a future already made me a saint. Yet something gnawed at me upon reflection, perhaps because apart from my sister, no one else treated me with such unconditional kindness, always putting me first. I'm too selfish to let go of this precious little favor. The winter light lingers, huddled dimly at my feet. Zhou's departing footsteps halted as he looked down, 2 rigid fingers now clutched his sleeve. "Sorry," I whispered softly, "I won't do it again." A chilly autumn breeze swept quietly through the surroundings. The boy, who seemed to have grown thinner overnight, had sharp brow bones and thick lashes. As he lowered his gaze, his eyes became unreadable, leaving only his hoarse voice audible. "That's the second time you've said that. Push me away again, and I'll really lose my temper." He slightly lowered his stance, locking eyes with me. "You wouldn't like me when I'm angry, miss. I might just devour you, like a starving wolf betrayed by its pack," he said. I thought he was joking because he was smiling, his pitch-black pupils clear and utterly guileless, so I laughed too. 8. Zhou Ke entered the training grounds. Rumor had it my uncle initially refused to take him in, whether because he looked too scrawny or because I'd brought him along, but his death-defying performance on the field was impossible to ignore. In the end, my uncle accepted him. Everyone described the scene as gruesome, but when I visited Zhou Ke, he appeared unscathed, neatly dressed and smiling as he invited me to the Lantern Festival, proudly mentioning he now received a soldier's pay. The Lantern Festival was when the Bai family reunited most completely. The whole household would stroll through lantern fairs and walk away ailments, though my sister, swarmed by crowds, would inevitably lose grip of my hand despite her efforts to include me. Left alone in the bustling crowd, I'd watch her figure grow increasingly distant. Such loneliness never happened when I was with Zhou Ke. His eyes held only me, his hand clasped mine tightly, never letting go even in the densest crowds. Strolling down Imperial Street between the colonnades, we watched football jugglers and tightrope walkers, while overhead floated lantern-lit pagodas and paper puppets dancing like celestial beings. Zhou Ke, raised in the city's underbelly, knew countless wonders, from sword-swallowing stunts to child-sized puppetry, revealing every trick's hidden mechanism to me. The eyes reveal everything. His obsidian black eyes gazed at me with startling clarity. Most deception relies on the eyes to lie for the deceiver. The truth is hard to uncover because your own vision betrays you first. Joku sometimes spoke with this oddly mature wisdom. I never quite understood it. The dragon-shaped pleasure boat glided past, its gilded splendor mesmerizing me as I leaned over the bridge railing. 9. The wealthy always have their amusements. No sooner is the lantern festival over than the spring hunt begins. Truth be told, spring came late this year, with intermittent snowfall and grass yet to flourish, but Baiyun pestered her family for an outing to the mountains until they relented. Gazing at the fading autumn hues on the slopes, I recalled an identical scene from my dreams, where I'd stubbornly demanded to ride my sister's horse, insisting Cui Hezhou hold the reins for me. My riding skills were poor, and that day a sudden snowstorm disoriented my horse, leading me deep into the remote woods. Cui Hezhou had been following me, but abandoned me when he heard my sister calling for me. After being attacked by wild dogs and badly frightened, my temper grew even more erratic. I forced my sister to arrange my betrothal to Cui Hezhou before I even came of age. The sky was overcast with a chilly breeze, an ominous day. I gazed thoughtfully at the stable in the distance. Even if my personality differs from reality in dreams, my horse remains the same as my sister's. Why insist on changing it? The Bai siblings were helping my sister choose a saddle, with Baiyun being particularly attentive. She personally saddled the horse for her. As I approached, I noticed Cui Hezhou staying close to my sister's side, which eased my mind somewhat. He may treat me poorly, but he's absolutely devoted to my sister. If danger arises, he'd protect her without hesitation. Yet this nagging unease lingers like an invisible splinter beneath the skin. As my sister mounted the horse, a sudden realization struck me. Since when did Baiyun treat her sister so well? She clearly resented how the family favored her sister over her, their own flesh and blood. My heart clenched as I stepped forward, choosing to trust the version of myself from the dream, trusting, no matter how wicked I become, I'll always protect my sister. I rushed over, grabbed my sister's reins, and looked up saying, "Sis, I love this horse you're riding, let's trade." 10. The moment I spoke, multiple pairs of eyes turned toward me. Elder sister smiled indulgently while Cui Hezhou's gaze turned complicated, and Baiyun, her eyes darted downward, and I caught a fleeting glimpse of resentment. This horse is definitely trouble. Apparently Cui Hezhou finally realized I wasn't being willful in the past 2 lives by insisting on taking sister's horse. He approached as if to help me with the reins, but his outstretched hand was intercepted midair. Joku coolly stepped between us, helping me mount the horse. With a gust of wind, the horse took off. Joku followed close behind. My hands trembled on the reins as the blizzard intensified before us, the horse growing increasingly unruly. Yet I found my courage. Perhaps because I turned around, someone walked behind me, their grip on my hand unyielding. No matter what may come, come here. Joku controlled the reins with one hand while scooping me off the runaway horse with the other. The world spun as snowflakes swirled around us, my gaze fixed on the boy's clenched jaw. The gamble paid off, I thought, but we still tumbled off the horse. The impact was brutal. Joku wrapped his arms around me as we rolled across the ground, his back slamming against a rock with a pained grunt. Joku, as I tried to help him up, a chilling wind carried the guttural growls of beasts to my ears. Pairs of eerie green eyes crept closer through the darkness. Wild dogs, they're here already. Didn't expect them this soon. Joku struggled to prop himself up and shoved me, run to the back. He was trying to draw the wild dogs away from me. Without a word, I turned on my heel, leaving Joku's hand hanging awkwardly in midair. He staggered to a stop, as if long accustomed to being the first one left behind. Just as he braced himself to face the charging hound alone, a stone came flying from behind him and struck the beast. The dog collapsed, dropping something which I swiftly scooped up. "Run." I grabbed him and sprinted downhill with all my might. The momentum made pulling him along effortless, but our headlong dash was too fast. Several dogs were hot on our heels. Joku stumbled and fell. Without hesitation, I yanked him sideways into a roll. Dust stung our eyes as the wild dogs overshot the hollow and moved on. The 2 of us were a mess, covered in grass and snow dust. As I lay panting heavily beside him, alive again, Joku stared at me. Swallowing hard, I grinned triumphantly, turned to meet his gaze, and opened my palm, letting a metal dog tag clatter out. "Look what I found." Baiyun's weak spot. Joku remained silent, his gaze lingering on the birthmark by the corner of my eye. The prolonged stare made me uneasy. I frowned and told him to stop looking. "Don't look into my eyes. They hold no beauty. The outer corners bear heaven's careless brushstroke, like a smudge of filth upon fresh snow." 11. Cui Hezhou found us with startling Speed. My sister broke into a cold sweat from fright, though I remained unharmed. She fell ill shortly after. The wet nurse said wild dogs nearly snatched me as an infant. My sister still blames herself for failing to protect me. How did a stray dog get in here? A flicker of doubt crossed my mind, but I quickly dismissed it. I was too busy preparing to extort Bayun. I've seen that metal dog tag at the Bai residence before. Definitely not a stray among the Bai family, only Bayun keeps wolves and dogs as pets. She's a nasty piece of work, but not particularly bright, though I ended up being the one hurt. That horse did belong to my sister. If our uncle looked into it properly, she'd be in real trouble, so she had to buy my silence with favors. Got the jade bracelet back. Zhou Ke's allowance was increased too, paid from her personal savings, not to mention hiring tutors for Zhou Ke, covering his writing supplies. Going through all this trouble for some lowborn, she sneered. I just finished looting her place and was feeling smug when her words soured my mood. I stepped forward and grabbed her face. Cousin, you'd better watch that mouth of yours. If I hear you've hurt my sister or him again, I'll make you pay in kind. She looked at my dead serious expression and suddenly burst out laughing. Xinjin, remember, we were so close when you first arrived. I thought we were the same, equally wicked, equally unloved by our family. Then I abandoned you. You were heartbroken. Begging to know why, she rested her cheek in my palm with a tilt of her head, her gaze 9 parts mocking and 1 part pity. I didn't say it back then, but I'm telling you now, because you're such a fool, so foolish you keep believing someone will love you forever despite all the hurt. You act all prickly, but every barb points inward, with a heart absurdly tender. We're nothing alike. I wrenched my hand away coldly and walked out without a word. Bayan's whisper came from behind. Let me give you some advice too. The eyes deceive most. Those who appear kindest will wound you deepest in the end. Xinjin, stop being that love-starved child. Better to be the villain. At least your heart won't get broken. I didn't listen. 12. This year marks my coming-of-age ceremony. My elder sister went to great lengths, promising to throw me a grand birthday celebration, though I pretended her mere company would suffice. The corners of my mouth already betrayed my delight. The Bai family places great importance on a maiden's coming-of-age celebration. We'd rise at dawn to pray at Cian Temple, then hire traveling troops to perform till midnight. When the season called for it, we'd had delicacies shipped from across the land to feast our guests. By the waterside pavilion, the fading scent of late summer lotuses lingered as the humid breeze stirred our sashes. Zhou Ke regarded me with a smile. I walked backward along the covered walkway, chatting animatedly. That autumn when Bayun came of age, we feasted on crabs, a whole bargeful shipped upriver by her aunt Jiangnan relatives. But for my sister's ceremony in early spring, while I still crusted the rivers, my uncles and brothers procured silverfish, live shrimp, liaodong pine nuts, wild roe deer, southern phoenix-tailed oranges, and tea from Tiger Hill's first sprouts. My words trailed off as I leaned against the railing, lost in thought. Even the snowfall that day was featherlight. Guests gathered in warm chambers among vases of freshly cut plum blossoms, their fragrance lingering as toasts were raised, wishing my sister lifelong happiness upon her coming of age. Zhou Ke walked over and leaned against the railing with me, asking what I'd like for my coming-of-age ceremony. After much thought, I replied, sincerity. As long as those who come to celebrate genuinely wish me well, I'd be happy with any gift they bring. Zhou Ke gazed at me as the wind swept his hair across his temple. I tilted my head slightly, hiding the birthmarked side of my face in shadow. He's grown into quite the handsome young man. The maids in the household blush whenever they see him. I take pride in how well I've raised him, yet there's this creeping dread I can't quite shake. It's a shadowy feeling I dare not confront. If I could take back my words, I'd beg my sister not to fancy him. She's already got plenty of admirers. What difference would one less Zhou Ke make on this day? I cashed in my birthday wish in advance. I prayed not for others' blessings, but only for the genuine hearts of my sister and Zhou Ke. Distant thunder rumbled as the wind churned the waters. It seemed the heavens replied, very well, Xinjin, I've heard you. Your wish shall be granted. 13. The day before my coming-of-age ceremony, rain poured from the heavens like a punctured sky. The nursemaid stumbled on the stone steps as she carried rain gear, buffeted by the gale-force winds. Brushing her damp clothes with lingering fright, she shook her head and muttered, age catches up with us all. Looking up, she saw me dashing outside excitedly, holding what appeared to be a letter. She asked in surprise, where are you going, miss? The rain's too heavy. Don't run about. I opened my umbrella and stepped into the rain, waving the paper that had just flown through the window. Mr. Zhou says he's afraid I'll be too busy tomorrow, so he's wishing me an early happy birthday. I laughed. The nursemaid waved a letter in her hand too. Here's a letter for you that came through the side gate. I didn't pay it much mind, just had my nurse help me undo it first. Arriving near the rose trellis at Swallow Return Hall as Joe had written, yet his figure was nowhere to be seen holding my umbrella. I scanned the area in puzzlement when a glance upward revealed Joe's silhouette by the rockery. Before I could speak, Chui Hezhou came into view. The air between them grew tense. As if they were arguing, I moved closer, standing by the rose trellis. Stop lying to her. Chui Hezhou's voice. Who are you trying to fool? I frowned slightly. The pouring rain nearly drowned out their voices, yet I still caught it. Chui Hezhou called Zhou Ke Aku. He said, Aku, stop deceiving Jinjin. She's completely naive. Zhou Ke replied calmly, deceive? Who isn't a swindler here, including you, playing the young master after staying here too long? Chui II, we crawled out of the same gutter, surviving by lies and theft. What, only you're allowed to chase riches while I can't even try, he chuckled. Or have your taste changed, tired of that holier-than-thou saint and taken a liking to my plain little girl? Chui Hezhou's chest heaved as he grabbed Zhou Ke by the collar. I'm warning you, never joke about her birthmark again. Zhou Ke shoved him away, his voice dropping to an ominous low. What the hell's gotten into you? Back when you were begging at Guanyin Temple, night after night you'd carve Shiyu Temple into stones, dreaming of nothing else. You'd hoard moldy buns people tossed your way rather than eat them. Now it's Jinjin this and Jinjin that. Can't wait to kick me aside and go wag your tail for her. Since when did you become such a lovesick busybody? Raindrops beaded on Chui Hezhou's brows, tracing the ridge of his nose as his lips trembled with resigned acceptance. She's different, you wouldn't understand. Silence swallowed everything but the rain and his murmured vow. I'll marry her. Zhou Ke remained indifferent. He said, suit yourself. Chui Hezhou was trying to climb the social ladder by leveraging the Bai and Shi family's influence. If he couldn't marry the elder sister, he'd settle for the younger. That had nothing to do with Zhou Ke. The future he schemed for was now his. That's why he couldn't care less whether that homely girl Shijin jumped from one hellhole into another. He turned around, his brows furrowed with savage irritation. Then he saw me. Rain fell from above as cold mist rose beneath my feet. The heavens mock me. Look, Jinjin, I've let you down again. 14. Zhou Ke took a step, as if moving toward me. Stay back. I glared at him with pure hatred. He froze. Liar, fake. The Buddha carved on my neck is a lie. Your promise to never let go was empty. You said the mark by my eye isn't heaven's flaw, but spring's first green breaking through snow, tenacious grass, a promise of hope with hope etched on my face. I'll never fall. Lies. Raindrops fell into my eyes, then trickled down like something burrowed from my eyes into my heart, only to be gouged out and thrown into the mud. I tore the Buddha pendant from my neck and smashed it hard into Zhou Ke's face. He remained motionless, a gash at the corner of his eye sending a crimson trail down his face. Get the hell out of here, now. Rain and tears streaked my face as I spoke with measured calm, each word deliberate. I never, ever want to see you again. Roses past their prime rot in the muddy rain, trampled underfoot with each step. I turned and walked away briskly. Within moments, Chui Hezhou picked up my umbrella and came running after me. Jinjin, without breaking stride, I whirled around and flung the paper at him on the verge of collapse. You're a fake too, fraud, using Zhou Ke's forged handwriting to lure me here. What's he staring at? Pretending to sincerely expose Zhou Ke's saintly acts. I can't take this anymore. Only my sister, only she would never lie to me. I'm going to find her. A passing servant mentioned she's in the study right now. I turned and went over. Since my sister loved the sound of rain and snow tapping on bamboo, the study was built in a bamboo loft. Footsteps would also be quite audible, but my uncle was there too, and the two were so engrossed in their serious discussion that they didn't notice my arrival at first. I wiped the water from my face and leaned against the window, waiting for them to finish talking before going in. Uncle said in a low voice, Guaner, you've already done enough for Jinjin. Now that her aunt has found her and wants to take her away, it's a good thing. Why can't you just let go? I blinked slowly, rainwater trickling down. 15. My sister's voice had never sounded so urgent as she said, leave, go where? This is her home, uncle. She's still so young. Do you really want her to wander the world with some wandering woman? The teacup was set down with a clink. Those are her real family, her uncle said coldly. We've raised her for over a decade. That's mercy beyond measure. Guaner, don't forget her father was your father's political rival. Every demotion your father suffered, every hardship your mother endured at the border, all were caused by her father, Song Xiao. Her sister burst into tears, but father was indirectly responsible for wiping out her entire family. dead silence filled the room. Rain pounded the bamboo house like a cascading waterfall, its thunderous roar resembling collapsing structures. Dizzy, I stared at my toes, feeling myself plummet downward. My sister's voice trembled. When Mother and I found her in the alley, she was still swaddled in blankets, clutched in the arms of her 6-year-old sister. Wild dogs circled them hungrily. Her sister had already died, and she herself was nearly frozen to death. Song Xiao was at fault back then, and so was my father. But what wrong did those girls ever commit? From that day on, Mother made me swear to become her elder sister. Uncle, you too swore by Mother's sickbed. You promised to cherish her, to care for her all her life. My sister covered her face, choking back sobs. Do you have any idea how desperately she longed for your love? When bullies picked on her as a child, she'd tell them about her general uncle and all her elder siblings, how you'd always stand up for her. Why couldn't you ever show her just a little more tenderness? Even her mischief was just a cry for your attention. She never missed preparing thoughtful gifts for every single family birthday, yet now on the eve of her own coming-of-age ceremony, you couldn't even wait till tomorrow before casting her out. The elder sister broke down, her body shaking with silent sobs against the table. After a long silence, General Bai heaved a sigh and rose to pat his niece's shoulder. Very well, if your heart truly can't bear to part with her, let her stay, but Guaner, you must understand, her aunt has already arrived in the capital and will eventually claim her, and with your own marriage approaching, you can't possibly keep her with you forever. You know how this child despises deceit. It's best to tell her these things sooner rather than later. Elder sister's voice trembled with sorrow. I'll let her enjoy her birthday first. We'll speak of this afterward. The bamboo house was utterly silent now. You could hear a pin drop, yet I descended the stairs soundlessly, breath held like a specter drifting away unnoticed. 16 I returned to my courtyard like a drowned ghost, finding lamplight and waiting company inside. It's Nanny. She'd fallen asleep. Waiting, slumped over the table. The letter remained unopened. Beside it lay a note in her clumsy, scrawling handwriting, the very script I'd once insisted on teaching her. My girl will be grown tomorrow, with secrets of her own. Nanny mustn't pry into your letters anymore. The following line of instruction: Nanny's grown old and sleeps soundly. When you return, remember to wake me. I'll make you longevity noodles. I swallowed hard, picked up the letter on the table, and opened it. The brushstrokes flowed with unconstrained elegance. Opening line: How are you, my dear niece Xinjin? She introduced herself as my aunt, saying she'd searched for me for years and was overjoyed to finally hear from me. These few pages could never fully express what's in her heart. She left an address, hoping I'd visit her there after receiving this letter. The letter contained some money and a twin-fish jade pendant. I stood motionless by the table for a long while. The candle flame flickered, with damp lashes weighing heavy. I walked to the bed and saw a newly tailored dress, my sister's birthday gift for me, so exquisite, embroidered with my favorite wisteria blossoms. Wearing this coming-of-age dress tomorrow will surely make me look like a proper young lady. I gave it a light touch but didn't take it, walked around the room, only to end up empty-handed. There was nothing worth taking, so what should I leave behind? Watching my nanny fast asleep, I draped a coat over her shoulders, then sat at the desk, dipped my brush in ink, and left her a note: Nanny, stay well, don't grow old. Then almost without thinking, I spread out a fresh sheet of paper and wrote, Sister. The ink congeals at my brush tip, 1,000 words left unwritten. A heavy drop falls, smearing the last traces of sister on the page. I lay down my brush, abandoning the attempt. On summer's final afternoon, I step out into the wind-whipped rain, leave all those grudges and passions behind with the riot of colors. When I reached the inn mentioned in the letter, dusk had fallen, the sky dark as midnight. The porch light flickered as a woman opened the door from within. She saw me standing there, drenched and deathly pale. She froze for a heartbeat before rushing forward and pulling me into a tight embrace. 17 I left with my aunt. She told me my name was Song Zhen, and that I had an elder sister 6 years my senior named Song Yi. My sister took after father's looks, while I resembled mother. My hometown is Chuzhou, where crimson trees meet emerald hills, and orioles sing among purple cherry blossoms. Snow rarely falls here. During the rainy season, the downpour is so heavy it leaves even stoves damp. Most children here can swim, often gathering by the waterside in summer. My elder sister was the most skilled swimmer among us, as elusive as a fish, always getting scolded by mother when dragged back from the shore. While pregnant with me, she begged mother for a baby sister so she could take me swimming, free to glide wherever the currents led. When soldiers came raiding our home, my quick-witted sister started a fire, then leapt through a window with me cradled in her arms, but she must have been gravely wounded, barely managing to hide us both in an alley before passing away. Who would have thought the Shi family would find and raise me as their own? What a cruel twist of fate, my aunt sighed, leaning against the ship's railing. Back when my brother-in-law and Shi Dingyan took the imperial exams together, they were peers, but later they ended up in opposing factions. As a leader of the Zhujiang faction within the reformists, my brother-in-law had always mediated disputes between the factions, hoping to prevent the reforms from becoming tools for political vendettas. Aunt shook her head. Once embroiled in the game, there's no perfect move. When my brother-in-law submitted a memorial exposing the collusion between officials and merchants to seize farmland in Jiangnan, Shi's political rivals within the reformist faction seized the opportunity to frame Shi Dingyan, resulting in his brutal exile to the northern frontier. Then the young emperor fell ill, halting the reform movement. With the Empress Dowager assuming power, the conservatives were reinstated, old grudges resurfaced in the chaos, no one could tell friend from foe anymore. The conservatives were determined to eradicate the reformists completely, leaving no chance for their resurgence. At that time, Shi Dingyan was preoccupied with defending the border against invaders, unaware the imperial court would stir such turmoil. His old faction allies used his reputation as a banner, inciting partisans in the capital to clear his name and seek vengeance. Thus, the Song family became the first target marked for extermination. Wounded and fallen in battle, Shi Dingyan let out a mournful sigh upon hearing the news before his death. Though I did not slay Boren died because of me. He then urged his wife and daughter to return swiftly to the capital, instructing them to contact the Bai family to locate the Song family's orphaned child and ensure proper care. My aunt recounted these old grudges to me in fragments during our journey, wanting me to understand one thing: Shenzhen, those who truly wronged our family have either perished or been exiled. The tides of officialdom rise and fall. After all these years of strife, has anyone truly come out unscathed? She gripped my hand tightly in the wind. Though the Bai family is wealthy and young, mistress, she treats you well. I fear for you. The capital is a den of wolves. If the Bai family ever falls from grace, where would you turn? Looking at me as if seeing my mother's reflection with tears glistening in her eyes, my aunt hastily wiped them away and smiled. I may be rough around the edges, unable to offer you a noble marriage like proper ladies do, but as your mother's daughter, I know you crave freedom. Roaming the rivers and lakes with me may not bring riches, but it'll give you the joy of living as you please. Hearing this, I smiled for the first time in over a fortnight, tilting my face upward. I closed my eyes and let the river breeze tousle my hair as the lone sail drifted away. 18. When my eyes opened again, I was still aboard the ship. Autumn mist curled in the air as familiar sights greeted me. A voice called out, "Miss, the boss sent word. We're to meet him in the capital with this shipment," sword in hand. I turned with the wind tugging at my hair ribbon and smiled. Understood. For years had passed, the place I once fled in panic can now be stepped upon with calm. This time, the escort agency was transporting the Mid-Autumn Festival gifts for old Prince Zhongheng. The prince, being an old acquaintance of my maternal grandfather, held great trust in my aunt. My aunt had me present myself at the prince's residence this time, partly to give me experience. The prince's steward led me to the reception study. Passing through an ornate archway, I saw antique shelves displaying various curios, 2 scrolls of calligraphy and painting, 2 pots of chrysanthemums in full bloom, several chairs by the table, and an incense burner on the desk emitting fragrant smoke. As I was looking around, a shadow seemed to be peering through the lattice window opposite. Suspicious, I stepped forward, but before I could get a clear look, the steward spoke behind me. "His Highness has arrived." I quickly turned to bow and saw an elderly gentleman in dark robes with a refined beard. His sharp eyes briefly met mine as he smiled faintly. "No need for formalities, please, sit." The steward served tea as the prince remarked, "With bandits running rampant these days, transporting valuables would be impossible without your escort agency. Your safe arrival in the capital with both goods and personnel intact proves your aunt entrusted this task to the right person." With a humble bow, I demurred, "My martial skills are but rudimentary, having learned the craft late in life. It's only through His Highness and my aunt's trust, and the escort agency's collective effort, that I've come this far." The prince smiled without dwelling on nostalgic small talk or maintaining formal distance. This very demeanor signaled he regarded me as kin. Shortly thereafter, the steward entered, indicating visitors had arrived in the main hall. Taking the cue, I rose to take my leave. The prince gestured downward with his hand. "You shall stay here." knowing my aunt had occasionally lodged at the princely residence during her visits to the capital. And recalling her letter advising me not to decline the prince's hospitality excessively, I nodded graciously and bowed in gratitude. After the two departed the study, I sat sipping tea while awaiting the housekeeper who would show me to my quarters. Just as the tea touched my lips, that familiar sensation of being watched returned. The gaze burned with such intensity and longing. It felt like it could pierce through the paper window and cling to my skin, deeply unsettling. Frowning, I set down the teacup and stared at the window before cautiously approaching. Who's there? Sure enough, a tall, slender figure stood there, but the moment I drew near, it vanished like a gust of wind through the rustling bamboo shadows. I was mildly perplexed. A few days later, when my aunt came to the capital, I told her about this matter. My aunt frowned and thought, the prince enjoys befriending martial artists. Those capable of such lightness skills must be from the Skyhawk Pavilion. Skyhawk Pavilion 19. I've heard of them. This martial arts sect operates in utmost secrecy, handpicking children with exceptional potential from infancy. They're trained either as elite assassins for noble houses or as covert operatives, weaving intelligence networks across the realm to gather information sold at exorbitant prices through their inner chambers. The news of my whereabouts in the Bai household was uncovered by my aunt through a former member of the Skyhawk Pavilion, yet my aunt remarked, strangely enough, that man refused payment. He even warned that the Bai residence was no safe haven, urging me to fetch you away promptly. I lowered my gaze, sensing a fleeting thought brush against my mind, elusive, just beyond comprehension. Had to prioritize the most urgent matter first. What happened to the Bai family? Having traveled the southern regions with me these years, Aunt remained unaware of capital affairs until the prince revealed everything at dusk. The entire Bai household was imprisoned. My heart skipped a beat as I leaned in to listen carefully to the prince's words. These past few days, the Bai family's old acquaintances have been visiting frequently, hoping I could mediate and find some solution. The prince shook his head. Ever since Her Majesty relinquished power years ago, we old imperial clansmen have had even less say before His Majesty. His Majesty is young and in his prime, yet profoundly calculating. When first ascending the throne, he appointed reformist factions to enact sweeping changes, only to feign illness and retreat under the Empress Dowager's pressure. Re-emerging with renewed vigor in recent years, the Bai family had long been staunch allies of the Shi clan and the Empress Dowager's faction. After Shi Dingyan's death, General Bai assumed command of the border forces, a development that inevitably aroused the emperor's suspicion. The Bai family's imprisonment stemmed from courtiers capitalizing on Lady Bai's visit to the Empress Dowager, spreading rumors that the Bais were conspiring to transfer military control to the Dowager's youngest son, Prince An. Already distrustful of the Bais, the emperor found these rumors increasingly credible when correspondence between General Bai and Prince An surfaced. Though the letters merely documented their unlikely friendship without political references, they undeniably proved their close relationship. Moreover, General Bai intends to marry his niece, the young lady Shi, to Prince An. On my way back to my chamber, I was in a daze. Shenzhen, my aunt gazed at me with concern. She pulled me close and reassured me. The Bai family hasn't spent all these years in the capital for nothing. If those people managed to petition the prince directly, they must have other connections too. Your cousin from the Shi family will be just fine. I lowered my gaze in silence. Entering the room, I sat by the window polishing my sword, lost in thought. I caught the whisper of a breeze as moonlight cast dappled shadows at my feet. My ears twitched, and I flicked a jujube from the fruit bowl without looking. Who's skulking in the shadows? Show yourself. The jujube was caught. The figure leapt down from the beam like a cat, cloaked in knight's mantle, dust-laden, standing in the half-light. My furrowed brows relaxed in sudden astonishment. I stared at the newcomer with bitter resentment. It's you, 20. Zhou Ke walked over with a jujube in hand and placed it beside me. He'd grown much taller, his hair longer too, though the same small braid still framed his face, tipped with those faded blue beads. I edged away, unwilling to let him get close. He lowered his gaze, measuring the distance between us with an impassive expression. Stay out of the Bai family's affairs. That's beyond your reach. I scoffed coldly. Whether I act or not isn't for you to decide. Without offering any explanation, he turned away and said coolly, I'll be watching you. You're insane. I hurled that jujube hard at his back again. But he didn't even turn around. Liar. A few walnuts followed, then oranges, candied fruits, and finally the wooden tray. The place was a complete mess. He left after all. Son of a bitch. I crouched down, curled up against the wall, and buried my head in my hands. It was all part of his carefully laid scheme. Zhou Ku was an operative from the Sky Eagle Pavilion, planted in the Bai household alongside Cui Hezhou to gather intelligence. With informants everywhere, he knew the Bai family's prominence made them vulnerable to collapse. The note that deliberately lured me there and the servant who conveniently mentioned my sister's whereabouts in the bamboo pavilion, both were his doing. He knew I wouldn't abandon my sister lightly. Only when I realized there was nothing left for me in the Bai household would I leave in bitter resignation. My sister did it, and so did he. Everyone deceived me in their own way, thinking it was for my own good, yet not a single soul bothered to ask if this was truly what I wanted. But how could I blame them? I couldn't, because they all had one simple reason for doing this: I was worthless. My sister knew I couldn't handle the truth about our family, and Zhou Ku understood I lacked the ability to salvage the crumbling house of Bai. Moonlight floods the window, stretching a solitary shadow. A sigh escapes the one who left, turned back, towering still, then sinking to his knees. He gently pries open my rigid arms, pressing his gaunt cheek to mine to brush away the tear at my eye's edge. Don't be afraid. You've got me. I'll always be yours. I shoved his face away in anger, sinking my teeth hard into his shoulder. Liar, you never listened to me. The bite was vicious, yet Zhou Ku chuckled deeply, his hand gently stroking the back of my head in soothing motions. Letting me vent my fury, he said, "You're mine too. Will you obey me?" Absolutely not. I must save my sister, no matter what. Zhou Ku understood perfectly. Gripping my clenched jaw with one hand, he tilted my face up and massaged it, sighing. "See, this is exactly why I can't trust you. You're such a stubborn child." I won't say a word. He cupped my face, his thumb brushing deliberately over the bluish birthmark at the corner of my eye, as if branding the memory into me. "Miss, I'm no saint. I only care about keeping you safe. Others be damned. If you insist on this reckless path, I'll have to lock you away." It carried the same threat as that other warning: push me away, and I'll devour you whole. Like a joke. But this time he didn't laugh, solemnly placing the discarded Buddha pendant back around my neck, repeating those same words: "She's got someone who treats her right." Cui Hezhou. I would have believed it before, but now I'm skeptical. The current situation is completely different from what happened in the dream. If Cui Hezhou has already risen to power, why hasn't my sister been rescued after being imprisoned for so long? 21. Unable to rest easy, I sneaked out to the Ministry of Justice prison one night without telling my aunt. Seizing an opportunity, I quietly knocked out a kitchen hand delivering meals, disguised myself with most of my face covered, and slipped in pushing a handcart. The prison was a maze of winding corridors. Dodging guards, I stumbled along blindly until, by sheer luck, I accidentally stumbled upon where the Bai family women were held. Spotting my sister, my heart leapt with joy, until footsteps approached. I ducked into hiding. It was Cui Hezhou, clad in embroidered robes with a jade inlaid belt. He looked every bit as haughty as in her dreams, yet instead of delight at seeing her beloved, the sister averted her eyes with indifference. The aunt glared coldly at him. "Scoundrel." Cui Hezhou arched a brow, ignoring the aunt's venomous stare as his gaze remained fixed on the sister, a dust-covered pearl in this dim chamber. "He seems to be making some kind of deal with my sister." I frowned and strained my ears to listen carefully. After piecing everything together, I was so furious I could bite someone. That despicable bastard actually forced my sister to become his concubine, demanding she reveal my whereabouts so he could take us both as his concubines and keep us sisters together forever. His voice slithered like a sewer snake, too bitter to reach the lofty moon, so he'd rather drag it down into the mud for spiteful satisfaction. "Yuguan, you walked this path yourself. When I spoke kindly, you scorned being my wife. Now, you've no choice left." Elder sister remained expressionless. Closing her eyes, Cui Hezhou chuckled at the silence, approaching the curled-up woman in the corner. "Third Miss Bai, you're clever. Surely you won't let their so-called pride bury you alongside them." "It's Bai Yun." I almost didn't recognize her. Her face was gaunt and smeared with grime, only the mocking curl of her lips revealing traces of the girl I once knew. She murmured softly, "Of course, they're unafraid of death, but I am. When my cousin refused to marry the lord out of stubborn pride, what choice had I? Though if his lordship seeks Xinjian's whereabouts, I might know a thing or two." As her words hung in the air, my sister and aunt tensed, their gazes snapping toward her. "Ayun." My aunt actually spoke up to shield me, trying to stop Bai Yun from continuing. Cui Hezhou grinned in satisfaction, bracing his knees as he squatted down. "I'm all ears." Bai Yun also smiled, enunciating each word deliberately. "The martial world shows no mercy. That silly girl, thinking she could roam the lands with her aunt, must have gotten herself killed by now. If you want her, go fetch her yourself, you, Chui Hezhou snapped, thrusting his arm through the iron bars in an attempt to strangle Bai Yun. Bai Yun was no pushover. Having tamed every beast since childhood, she seized the moment to swing her wrist chains, smashing Chui's nose bridge with a sickening crack as blood sprayed. You swamp-dwelling toad, climbed to power by trampling your benefactor. And now you dare lust after phoenix flesh. Go suck your father's farts. She unleashed a torrent of curses before being hastily pulled back by her aunt and sister through the iron bars. Chui Hezhou pressed a hand to his bruised nose, glaring at them with venom. Fine, just fine. Then we'll settle this at the execution grounds. Radiating malice, he turned on his heel and stormed off. Only when everyone had completely left did I push the food cart out from the shadows on the other side. I covered my face until I figured out how to rescue them. I couldn't let my sister know and worry. My sister nodded as she received the meal, her gentle demeanor undiminished even in captivity. Thank you, she said, seeing her once delicate fingers now rough and scarred. My eyes stung. I lowered my head and clenched my teeth to stay silent. My sister didn't notice anything amiss. Just as I was about to leave, she opened the lunchbox and froze. She whirled around and grabbed my retreating hand. 22, you. My sister cut herself off, frantically scanning our surroundings before lowering her voice in agitation. What are you doing here? Get out now. Both my aunt and Bai Yun, who had been idly swinging a captured mouse in the corner, turned to look at the sound. They froze when they saw my eyes. Are you out of your mind? Coming to play in a place like this? Bai Yun murmured in astonishment. I pressed my lips together and stood up. I'll come back for you. My sister slapped my hand and shoved me hard. You fool, get out of here now. My aunt snapped out of it, wearing that all too familiar look of exasperated disappointment. How did your aunt raise you? Still as reckless as ever. Quick, Guaner, drive her away. Since I'd already been caught, I figured I might as well ask if they had any messages for the outside world that I could deliver. Mind your own business. My aunt joined in hitting me. It was Bai Yun who leaned in and gave me a task. Help me look for my dog when you have time. My aunt smacked my head hard. Still thinking about that damn dog. I can't stay long, I stubbornly repeated under my breath. I'll come back to save you, no matter what. With that, I pushed the cart away. Just as I was about to disappear around the corner, my sister suddenly called out urgently behind me. Jenner. As I turned away, she seemed to realize this might be our last meeting. Her eyes lingered over every inch of me before she finally smiled with relief. Her lips trembled silently. Yet I understood every unspoken word. Overcome with emotion, I hastily turned my back and hurried away. Only after leaving the prison did I find a deserted alley, where I slumped against the wall and sobbed uncontrollably. My sister said, I've grown taller. 23, wiping away my tears. I was about to leave the alley to seek advice from my uncle's old acquaintances, but someone stood blocking the alley's exit. Zhou Ke caught me as promised, locking me in a waterside pavilion. The clanking of chains outside as I pound on the doors and windows. Zhou Ke, you can't do this to me. I won't be grateful. I'll only hate you. Do you hear me? The man paces slowly past the window outside while I mirror his steps inside. Frantic. Zhou Ke, bastard. The man stopped and gave me a sidelong glance. He said, I told you she's got people covering her back. Why won't you listen? I shouted angrily. Who? Chui Hezhou. That fucking animal. If not him, there'd be others. Zhou Ke lowered his gaze and murmured, Xinjin, she has family. Even if General Bai couldn't protect himself, he'd move heaven and earth to shield her and the Bai women. But you, would they do the same for you? He said, Xinjin, have you forgotten how the Bai family neglected you? How utterly alone you were there? I froze momentarily, then after a brief silence, shook my head. That's not true. Were the Bai family truly cruel to me? They shared no blood relation with me, and were even nominal political adversaries of my father. They raised me in their household with the same privileges as their daughters, equal education, private tutors never missed a day, doctors when I fell ill, birthday banquets when I came of age. When mischievous, I faced punishments just like Bai Yun. At every social gathering with my two sisters, whether aunt or cousin introduced me, they'd always say, my daughters, our three younger sisters. Bai Yun always claimed they favored her as little as they did me. She said the clothes and shoes I painstakingly made were scorned, never worn, just given to servants. But did I witness this myself? What I saw was aunt carefully storing my handmade garments in the wardrobe, then chiding me offhandedly. All this effort on embroidery would be better spent practicing your chicken scratch handwriting. Even Bai Yun's dogs, which she originally set loose to chase after me and my sister, never actually harmed me. Those dogs obeyed her every command and would devour any meat. Had she truly wanted me injured, they wouldn't have just barked and run away. My profound disappointment stemmed from having long regarded them as family. Like Bayun, I yearned for their special favor. All these years, I'd been mistaken, believing fate has always dealt me the short end of the stick. In truth, the heavens were telling me, Xinjin, what the eyes perceive may deceive, but what the heart feels never lies. No matter how deeply concealed, its truth remains. You must constantly examine your conscience and reflect. Have you taken shortcuts out of fear of hardship on the path you should walk? Have you neglected those you ought to protect due to prejudice or carelessness, choosing to abandon them instead? Gripping the window lattice, I said earnestly to Zhou Ku, I know charging ahead when success seems impossible may appear foolish to you, but I simply wish to contribute my effort, however insignificant it may be. The gloom-laden sky stretched endlessly in oppressive shades of gray through the window. Zhou Ku locked eyes with me. He actually had gentle eyes, the kind that could easily make people mistake him for soft-hearted, if not for his harsh words, and that was indeed the truth. He unfastened the chains, just like when he'd first let go of my hand years ago to carve out a path for my survival, granting me freedom. I trust my heart. The reason I fell for someone like him in my youth must lie in some unspoken kinship between our souls. 24. From Zhou Ku's intelligence, I learned my uncle had already orchestrated a prison break from inside his cell. Driven to this point, my uncle must have been utterly desperate. He likely realized the young emperor's deliberate delay in trying the Bai family case was simply waiting for his suicide. The emperor wanted to avoid the infamy of executing a loyal general. His true aims were reclaiming border army control, suppressing the old faction, and aggressively implementing reforms. With the general's death and the old faction's collapse, the emperor could afford to turn a blind eye to the remaining Bai family members. This was the bone-chilling, tacit understanding between ruler and subject. Only then did it dawn on me. No wonder sneaking into the prison had been so easy. The higher-ups had probably been watching all along. My aunt rubbed her goosebump-covered arm and shook her head, staking lives on this charade just for favorable history books. Who knows how posterity will judge the truth? The truth will vanish forever in this prison break spectacle, Zhou Ku declared. Spreading a map of the Ministry of Justice's layout across the table, Auntie frowned. With General Bai's unyielding temperament, would he truly take his own life as His Majesty wishes? Zhou Ku remained silent, his gaze shifting to me who had been lost in thought. An autumn chill swept violently through the capital, while the hearth fire burned fiercely. He will, I spoke softly. For years I'd called him uncle, this stern, tight-lipped man who showed kindness only to my mother while being strict with all other juniors. Yet he never missed sending seasonal gifts to any of the children. When my writing skills remained clumsy, instead of telling me to quit wasting the instructor's time, he gifted me a gentle mare from the northern lands. That mid-autumn festival, a patient creature that would never throw me off no matter how slow my progress. In his heart, family always came before everything else. He could forsake power, even life itself, but never would he stand by and watch his family perish with him. My aunt looked at me with sorrow. Xinjin, I bit my lip and lowered my head. After all he'd done to raise me, I could do nothing for him in return. A hand gently rested on my head, giving it a tender rub. As Zhou Ku's hoarse voice spoke, almost as if he'd heard my silent thoughts, he said, protecting his beloved family through your help is all he ever wanted. I looked up, deeply moved. He smiled. Firelight illuminated his face, making the blue beads at his hair ends shimmer brilliantly. 25. The wind howled fiercely on the day of the prison break. Desert sands from the frontier swept over the Great Wall as I joined a ragtag band of vigilantes from all corners of the land, fighting our chaotic way into the Ministry of Justice. First time awkward, second time smooth. I soon found my way to the women's quarters while my sister and aunt wore worried expressions. Bayin's face lit up with delight. She saw no trouble in our daring rescue, leaping into my arms with unbridled excitement. Well done, Xinjin, you've really outdone yourself. I forced a smile and urged them to hurry. Wait, father and the others are locked up at the other end, Baiyun said, pulling me along as she snatched keys and a knife from a guard knocked out by the smoke. Flames spread through the corridor as we moved through the thick smoke, successfully freeing my uncle and two cousins. My aunt, keeping close behind, seemed to realize something, her eyes reddening. My sister remained silent the entire way. Baiyun was the only one still naive enough to ask if we'd found the dog. As we reached the prison gates, flames roared inside with signs of imminent collapse. Baiyun turned back in confusion, watching her father lagging behind, reluctant to follow. Dad, what are you standing there for? Come out. In the firelight, Her uncle stood in coarse linen robes, gaunt and desolate, offering her a faint smile. Bai Yun suddenly understood. She tried to rush forward, but her cousins held her back with desperate strength. She thrashed wildly, "Let me go, he's your father too. Have you lost your minds, father? Come out. At worst we'll rebel together. I'm not afraid to die as a family, father." The pillar of fire came crashing down at the final moment. Suddenly, my silent aunt rushed forward, stunned. I reached out but failed to stop her. At the critical moment, my sister threw her arms around our aunt. Though she'd never laid a finger on my sister before, my distraught aunt accidentally struck her during the struggle. "Let me go with him, he's all alone." The road to the underworld seems endless. My aunt threw her head back and wailed. My sister knelt down, holding our struggling aunt firmly against her slender frame, refusing to let go no matter how she resisted. 26. Soon after, my other aunt arrived with reinforcements arranged by the prince, Zhou Ke, and our cousins stayed behind to cover our retreat while we escorted the womenfolk to safety. The boat had docked, with armed escorts from the security bureau standing guard, but the ordeal wasn't over. Our uncle made sure none who climbed over the Bai family would survive. He traded his life for our safety, eliminating every last threat. With his final breath, he left a secret missive for the Empress Dowager, both a reminder and a warning. The emperor could strip his military power and claim his life, but the Dowager and Princeton were untouchable. He would die content knowing every enemy of House Bai had been accounted for. Thus Cui Hezhou's brief triumph ended when the watchful emperor coldly expelled him from the inner circle of power. But he'd never surrender so easily. On the day of the prison break, he fought tooth and nail to escape alone from that deadly raid. By sheer coincidence, we crossed paths with him on the vast wasteland before boarding the ship. "Xinjin," he called out to me. He claimed we were soulmates across 2 lifetimes, that he'd been waiting for my return. Said he finally saw the truth in his heart and had a change of heart. Is this toad out of his damn mind? My aunt wrinkled her nose in disgust of everyone present. Only I understood what he truly meant. After lifetimes of empty pretenses, perhaps only in this life or death moment, with tears of remorse streaming down his face, did he seem genuine. Yet how could I possibly feel any pity for him? Bai Yun's icy remark echoed my own thoughts. This man deserves to die 1,000 deaths. With that, Bai Yun raised a curled finger to her lips and blew a piercing whistle. 3 powerful black hounds came charging up from the water's edge. I'd hired couriers to track them down. Bai Yun crouched down and firmly stroked the terrifying beast's fur with surprising tenderness. After making sure the hounds recognized Cui Hezhou, she patted their heads and whispered her command, "Go." The black hounds lunged at Cui Hezhou, whose eyes were bulging with terror. Bai Yun stood quietly in the wind, watching. "Father gave them to me. Back then, many people forbade me from keeping them, saying such fierce dogs would turn on humans. But father handed them to me and said, 'Dogs take after their masters.' He believed the hounds I raised would never harm anyone." She turned to me with tear-filled eyes. "But today I must make them hurt people. Would father blame me?" After settling our aunt in the cabin, my elder sister emerged behind me and caught the words I hadn't yet spoken. "No," she embraced both Bai Yun and me, "because you're both protecting your family." Bai Yun sobbed in her sister's embrace for the first time, biting back tears. I looked at my sister. Her lips were clenched tight, refusing to cry. Tears carry weight, and she had to stay strong to bear everyone's grief. She hugged us younger sisters tightly, shielding us from the bloody scene behind. But sensing Zhou Ke's presence, I turned my head. He charged out with his cousins in tow. Cui Hezhou's leg was mangled and bleeding as he clutched Zhou Ke's sleeve like a drowning man grasping at straws. Pleading, "Aku, we're brothers who escaped the pavilion together." My nerves tightened. Zhou Ke looked down at him in silence before speaking. "Second brother, back at Sky Eagle Pavilion, you taught me that death-sworn have no brothers. That's why you abandoned my crippled self in the wolf den that night and used the only grappling rope to climb the cliff alone." Zhou Ke crouched down, effortlessly severed his robe's hem, then turned toward me without sparing a glance at Cui Hezhou's wails. "Aku has learned much from this lesson." Gradually, Cui Hezhou's cries faded as he lay half-conscious in a pool of blood. The black hound kept tearing at his flesh. At the Skyhawk Pavilion, he served as a lackey for the martial world. Climbing into the imperial court, he became the emperor's hound. Day by day, he grew more obsessed with power plays and held emotions in contempt. In the end, he never truly lived as a human being for a single day. 27. When the dust finally settled, winter had arrived. After burying my uncle, we spent the new year Together in Chuzhou, no firecrackers, no red lanterns, just solemn tranquility. On the 15th day of the lunar month, my aunt brought the Bai family children and my sister to pay solemn respects at my family's graves for half a day. Bai Yun regained some composure as I told her about my late sister. She felt a strong kinship with Song Yi. After the new year, when seeing them off to my aunt's hometown, Bai Yun whispered in my ear, "Next spring, I'll come to Chuzhou to teach you swimming." I looked at her and we laughed together. The boat was about to depart. Aunt and the Bai siblings waved at me. My sister gazed at me quietly. She'd already said everything she needed to last night. Last night she returned the coming-of-age dress I'd left behind, along with 4 years' worth of clothing. Each piece was tailored to different measurements, made through her consultations with the nursemaid. She said I'd grown up, that I could understand certain things now. Shen, life is but a fleeting journey. Your footsteps and mine were always meant to move forward. Don't be sad, dear, a part of my heart will always stay with you. I used to say forever so easily, wanting never to be parted from someone, wanting to possess that love eternally. Back then I didn't understand, when one clings to forever, that's when disappointment begins. She's more than just an elder sister. The world has already bound her with too many ropes, and I refused to be another one of them. So there I stood by the riverbank, waving vigorously at the departing boat without shedding a single weak tear. The snow fell so heavily it seemed to freeze the clouds themselves. Beggars huddled together, shivering in dilapidated sheds, while kind-hearted shopkeepers brought them leftover scraps from customers' meals. But thankfully, when I turned around, someone was still waiting for me. Aunt and Zhou Ke stood beneath the tree, waiting to take me home. In the misty early spring, the wind stirred damp dust that brushed against the bluish birthmark by my eye. I ran freely toward them, no longer fearing the gust that might expose my mark, no longer bowing my head. This vast world has room for the endless strife of power-hungry schemers, their insatiable quarrels, yet also holds space for the tangled insecurities and wounded hearts of ordinary souls. Truth is, all you need is to lift your head and keep walking forward. In our fleeting century of existence, how many family members under the same roof become passing strangers in life's endless comings and goings? Yet how many destined strangers stubbornly carve paths through blizzards of fate, arriving where love awaits to stand together in shared shelter. Never surrender lightly. Only when every possible road has been traveled can one call it a complete life. The end.